I'm Dean Withers. You might know me from my Jubilee video, One Woke Teen versus 20 Trump supporters, or my other crazy debates with crazy people. I've had quite a few.
And I'm Parker. You might know me from my debates against Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro on Jubilee, or from my debates on TikTok against Trump supporters every single day.
And we're hitting the road for the Unfuck America tour.
First stop, we're taking the fight straight to Charlie Kirk.
On April 22nd at Texas A&M University, you'll see us and your other favorite creators live on stage debating Charlie Kirk and calling out his bullshit.
It's time to shut down the lies and to stop the spread of misinformation, and that's why we teamed up with National Ground Game to make this happen.
So hit that follow button, check out our site, and join the movement. Let's unfuck America together.
It's a very move on your part to keep avoiding Dean.
Then debate me.
People like
Let
you.
me on the mic. Let me on the mic.
Get Dean on the mic. That's the whole reason I came up here.
Thank
it's
you.
a move for you to keep avoiding him.
This was Dean's whole plan. I'm going to bring these people here. Woo!
We've been told by every single one of Kirk's staffers that he doesn't want to talk to us. I have some disagreeing questions. Do you think I could ask him?
Well, that's something you're going to have to talk to somebody else about.
The reason we weren't let in line is because we don't go to college. But apparently neither does a guy on the mic. Yeah, we're in MAGA territory now. We need to be very respectful.
Hey, Charlie, Dean's here. Dean. Come on.
You have a permit?
We should talk. Trying to talk to Charlie Kirk, but it's not working. Do you think me and Kirk should have a conversation?
100%.
You got to get me up there, man.
You may be purposely ignoring you.
This has proven to be very difficult.
I think that we are in the free marketplace of ideas. Anyone should be able to come up here and challenge and debate you. If you're really for that, as you say you would allow someone to come up here and debate you on that.
My thoughts on the Unfuck America tour from a cult perspective, because if you're going to go out there, you need to understand you are dealing with a cult. These aren't just regular folks that want to have a conversation. This is a cult. And when you show up with the name Unfuck America, you are showing up as if you are the heroes to fix everything that they have fucked up. And I say they because when you're in a cult, they identify with their leader. So anything you say about him, you're saying about them. Their brain doesn't have a difference in there. That's a cult mind. So they're not separated out from that yet. So as long as you attack them or get your digs or your FAFOs on them, nothing will help. Nothing will help. Because just being a Republican in general for a long time has become a religion. And I think maybe for some Democrats too. But when you're in a religion, and if someone else of another religion starts talking to you about their religion as if it's true, you may sit there and be polite or go, oh, that's interesting. But you don't take it to heart because obviously it's not true. It's another religion. So they'll listen to you, but it's not really going to take hold because it's just another religion. And they're usually taught that outside religions are wrong and bad and out to hurt their religion. So if you're religious at all, you can understand if someone came up to you and tried to pitch their religion to you, you'd be like, oh, when Mormon missionaries come to your door, you're polite, but it's also like, okay, thank you, bye. So, and they may come away going, oh yeah, they listened to us. We think we really got there. No, you didn't. You didn't. So I suggest changing the name, and I would change it to something more like Unifying America. Because what we want to do with a cult so cults are based on opposition. And right now, Trump has created the Democrats as the opposition. We're the deep state, we're the devil, all that stuff. So we have to create another opposition that we can join forces in and that to unify us and to go after them, and that would be the mega corporations. And so the focus needs to be there like, hey, this is what we aren't getting because that's what they're getting. You have to turn it to them because you're never going to win all the debates on abortion, LGBTQ, like you're dealing with a religion. So for right now, the best thing to do would be to turn their focus and always, why does the mega corporations need so much money? Why do they get all of this and we get so little? And just keep reframing it that way to where why do they need so much power? And show examples of how much they get and how much we get. I just think that's so much more effective, and it will start to create so if we do this together, we could take them down together. And I wouldn't I wouldn't use Elon's name. I wouldn't go personal because they identify with Elon, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Trump, because in America, especially Republicans, like that's who you're supposed to be, especially these white men. Like when you grow up, that's who you're supposed to be. So if you attack those people, you're attacking those white guys. So don't do that. Stick with mega corporations, BlackRock, because I've also seen Republican creators on here talk about wanting to buy a house and they couldn't buy one. And they have money and they were like, we just can't buy it. Someone keeps buying up all the houses. And the Republicans, and they were talking about BlackRock and the other ones I can't think of right now. And they were frustrated by them. Now they're not linking that to Trump and the other billionaires, but they were angry with them. So if you can make a link of how we have to defeat them to get what we want, I think you're going to have a much better chance. And if you walk in with something called unifying America, then they're not on their back foot in a defense position, because Unfuck America is defense right there. Annoyance, agitation. Like you walk in as the enemy thinking you're wearing a cape, and that is very off-putting to a lot of people. So while I think it could be a good idea, the approach has to be different and the name has to be different. You really have to come in with the attitude of, we have to be allies and friends to do this, to take on them, and talk about how neither side of our government works for us. They're all bought and paid for. Talk about the lobbyists. Talk about the money in governments. Because for a lot of them, this comes down to money. So just help them understand where the money is impacting both sides and how we have to change that so that we actually can make America great again.
Unfuck America tour did nothing but fuck all the creators that participated, it would seem. I mean, when you set out to make Charlie Kirk look stupid and you collectively look dumber than he does, that's a massive, massive, massive L, right? I mean, it's like, who needs Republicans talking shit to the left when they do this to themselves? I think it's a life lesson, actually, though. When I started making TikToks, I just wanted to express myself. I had realized the art of or the value of sharing your story and creating community around trauma and some of the difficult issues. And I had two words that were my guiding stars, which were authenticity and vulnerability. And this isn't to kind of pat myself on the back. It's actually to expose that being authentic and vulnerable on the internet is great, but it still only shows the audience these small snippets. And you simply don't know the people behind the screen, behind the camera. You don't know them, right? You don't know what's really going on. And so for a lot of people, it's simply about money. It's simply about clout. It's simply about, you guessed it, narcissism. Right? Because when you see it, Peyton, the one guy seemingly telling the truth, made a great video that I watched with receipts, screenshots, and all that. And when you see, the difference between what people are saying on camera and what's going on behind the scenes, and how many of these losers are lying, it's shocking, but it shouldn't be. Because quite frankly, this is all a show. No matter how hard I tried to be authentic and vulnerable, you're still only seeing these small snippets of my life. You don't know me. You don't know me off camera. Right? I mean, I think we really need to kind of examine this new relationship, which is between creator and follower, because they're dominating a lot of people's lives. People are spending so much time and investing so much intellectual trust in the people they're watching on their screens. And maybe the question is, should they be? I mean, when I actually had lunch with Mr. Jones, he seems to have melted down the most. And if the reports are true, it's all been a grift. He's got all of these women coming out of the woodwork. The word narcissist is being thrown around. And so, we simply have to be very careful about who we're trusting. Information is one thing, but imbuing people that you see on your screens with morality, with anything other than this person delivers information to me that may or may not be useful, you need to be careful. Because again, I think this is just exposed. There were a lot of well-meaning creators on that tour too. I mean, Oh That's Rich, I love. I forget the sniper guy that I really like. I forget his name. And so a lot of people ended up taking shrapnel or being collateral damage in this fuck show. But it's just a lesson. You got to be careful who you partner with. You got to be careful who you trust. Narcissism exists just as much on the left as it does on the right. Narcissism exists wherever there are people. A narcissist can wear a mask of altruism, compassion, empathy. They are on the left in large numbers, and with Democrats. I'm going to make that distinction from now on. And so, get your popcorn, because it's still going on and on and on. But I think it's just embarrassing. it speaks a lot to why Democrats and you know, people of that nature struggle a lot of times, because these purity tests, you know, these kind of moral positions, people get mad at me when I'm acting like a bitch, when I'm blocking people, when I'm getting cranky, and they wonder why I do that. It's because it's just being me. You have no illusions about who I am because I'm showing all of it. If they're not mask drops, it's called me being a human being. The mask drops only occur when people are 100% the mask. Speaking of that, I rewatched The Master for about the 100th time, one of my favorite movies. And that's another masterful movie on narcissism and mask drops, specifically the pig fuck scene where like Lancaster Dodd is talking to an audience and the guy starts questioning, he's like, pig fuck! And that's a mask drop. It's all about narcissism. And so this has been a bit rambling, but you know, like, trust yourself. And when you trust yourself, we don't have to trust people we don't know, because we don't know anybody that we don't know.
I believe in the mission of unfucking America, but I also believe that liberation movements cannot succeed if they replicate harm internally.
Hannah, you cannot seriously have said that the Unfuck America tour, starring Dean and Parker, was a liberation movement. What? As the proud leftist on this tour full of liberals, how can you say that the Unfuck America tour was a liberation movement when it wasn't even a tour? It was one day, and you guys failed to raise enough funds to make it to the next stop, and all of those funds are mysteriously gone and unaccounted for. It's a scam. In your apology about the scam and how you had a hand in some of the racism that went down, you're gonna call it a liberation movement? And then you're going to end it by soft launching another tour with the same people?
We still have a country to unfuck, and me as well as the other creators are working on continuing to do so with a different organizer. But we have to start always by unfucking ourselves too.
This is what people mean when they say grifter, because what are you doing? I don't think any of you understand that the more you guys try to fix your brand integrity, the more you lose. Like, no one's buying it. You guys keep saying that you're going to reflect, but none of you have even looked in a goddamn mirror. It's ridiculous. And now here are just some clips from a live with you and Andra where you are actively denying that you knew anything about the live. And I think you say this was like 2 days before you guys even left for Texas. So y'all were made very aware before the event even happened. There's really no excuse for anything. And everyone knows this, except for you guys. Good luck with unfucking yourself, Hannah.
Gonna say it again. To keep
I
the
don't
total
personally know the
link in
organizer.
bio.
I just want to say that. I don't know what all that shit is about, but I'm going to help with this fight. I'm going to go and harass the Yahtzees. That's what I'm on this about. I don't know what is going down with all that.
Yeah. There's an assumption of like a universal understanding of a certain topic.
How do you not know? Because I was in business meetings all week. I'm out here doing things, dude.
I should have known. No, nobody's saying that they don't care. I personally need to look into it. I don't really know what y'all are talking about. So I'm obviously trying to be careful with what I say because I don't know anything. I was not on the panel at the time. Hannah is
I've never done a fucking panel like that, so that's how I know you're just spewing misinformation.
As they do.
Straight up blocking you right away. I don't get involved with the fucking infighting anymore, and that's something.
Fair. There's no Peyton on the tour. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, first you said Taylor, and then you said Peyton. Who's next?
Yeah.
Buddy and Guy? Pal and friend and dude guy?
You're quick, dude. Jesus. You should do stand up. Your name is attached to the tour and the organizer. I don't know what you're talking about. Once I do, I can. No. Yeah, thank you, Diana. We will always. Okay, so again, there's like a shit ton of people on the tour. Most of us don't know anybody that's going. We're just kind of independently.
I haven't even attended the tour yet.
Yeah, like I've conversed with maybe 3 people going total. we're all kind of independently contracting. We're not like all besties. In fact, I would argue that most people on the tour probably don't like me. So maybe don't say they are not on the tour if you don't.
Dude, a reality show of my life would be crazy boring.
But somebody said, what's in 3 days? The Unfuck America tour.
Easter's tomorrow. Technically 2 days. We're doing the event in 3 days, but we all leave in 2 days. Dude, you got every troll in here desperate to attack us for everything that's ever happened.
No, please.
Why don't you get your ass back to Netflix and watch Love is Blind 32 more times?
Oh shit. I low-key like that show.
They're trying to drag that shit back into here.
Who?
You'll see it eventually. Because I was on the show. I was supposed to be in the video.
I genuinely will take time to reflect. I could probably answer that for you, Francesca. However, I also need to like look into what this is talking about because I'm a little bit confused too, but obviously it's important to some people, so I understand that I should educate myself on this. No, I wasn't. No, I'm not. Okay, guys, obviously you guys are confusing me for somebody else, but you want me to look into this somebody else, and you want me to watch the video. I hear you, and I will. I'm not taking this lightly. And I'll get back to you. But thank you for... I'm not gonna. I don't need to watch my portion over again. I literally, all I said that it was that it was hypocritical for somebody who called for the unaliving of somebody to call out harassment. I don't really, but, what? Yeah, I am, but I thought you guys were you guys are confusing me. I remember my portion, but you guys are talking about somebody else. Yeah, I'm gonna go watch the portion that you guys want me to watch. I'm not, like, I don't have mental issues. Like, I remember last night, obviously I remember mine. What? I didn't even know about, okay.
Andra, why are you lying? Because not only are you lying about the Unfuck America tour, you're on your page lying about meeting with fucking Congress. Because we could talk about both. At the beginning, this video is going to show a voice memo of her where we're talking about our field trip options for the Trending Up conference. One of them being meeting with Congress. For this one, you had to write a paragraph about what issues you wanted to talk about when meeting with these Congress members, right? Something that matters to you, what you advocate for, right? And this was her response.
Okay, I didn't fill out the field trip form because I went to do the thing that you did with the politicians, and then it asked me about policy and stuff, and I panicked, and it's just a lot of pressure. What did you say for that stuff? Let me just because that's like stress. I don't have anything important. I should probably just be touring the fucking mall strip. I think my issue is just like, I don't feel like I have anything new to present, you know? Like, they've all heard it before. It's too much pressure. I don't know. Just let me meet Tina Smith and call it a day.
And my thing is, this could be 100% valid. If you weren't trying to follow Charlie Kirk around and argue with a fucking known Nazi, that you're not going to change his mind. But you're okay with that because that's going to get you some viral fucking clips. Because when we were first presented with this, it kind of gave more of a meeting instead of interviews. We were going to interview Congress members. You thought this was not going to be a viral moment for you, so you didn't want to do it. You're okay following Charlie Kirk around, but not meeting with members of fucking Congress. But also, you didn't meet with Congress. You might have did a Capitol tour. We were split off into 2 sections. We actually sat there and talked with Congress members and interviewed them. You weren't on that list. Your name's not here. Also, crazy how now you deleted one of your messages. You can still see my response. I wasn't fucking talking to myself. And did you think I didn't screenshot that before, love? Like, love. Be for real. Because before Peyton releases screenshots proving that you didn't actually have an issue with it to start with, I already kind of thought that because of this response. You're saying on your platform that as soon as the situation happened, you were voicing your opinion. I mean, you weren't fully lying because you were voicing your opinion. It just wasn't calling out the racist. It was defending the racist. But I think I know why I'm blocked, and I think I know why you unsent that message. I commented on Peyton's video, and I said that you told me that the situation was drama when I asked. You must have saw that comment and thought, oh my God, let me unsend it before he makes a video. I already had the screenshot. And blocking me doesn't make it fucking better either. Performative.
I challenge Dean and Parker to a public debate / conversation on this. To be clear, I don't think they're like evil or they fucked up a ton. I just feel like they're making a ton of concessions to the wrong types of people. And I feel like this issue is nowhere near as big of a deal as it's been made out to be. I think that would be my challenge on what to chat about.
These are not people that even believe in the electoral process. Like they've said.
So Z went on Destiny's stream today to talk about what a great organizer she is, how stupid she thinks all this controversy is, and to shit talk people like Peyton, and to say basically that people need thicker skin and need to stop being so optics brained. I think optics is pretty important in any movement, especially when you're going to go on the stream of someone who is currently being sued for sharing intimate videos without someone's consent and is being criminally investigated for recording videos without someone's consent. Someone who has been bullying and intimidating his victim, whose defense has been that he had implied consent. He's also said this about former orbiters who have left his community and given critical coverage of the story.
This where there's DMs about you saying like, hey, I wish this person, has this person been doxxed yet?
Yeah, for Anna, that's bullshit. For Driscoll and Kleeman, I'd kill them if I could. I'd choke their house into it. But not for Anna.
So Z's whole thing seems to be that like all the people upset with her and the UNF America tour are just being like too soy and nitpicky. Now, I think like in general, there is a bit of a problem with some people like nitpicking any sort of organization that takes place. And there does need to be some room within organization for some people to mess up and learn from that. But when you're the one who messes up, you can't be the one saying, listen, guys, you guys are taking this way too seriously. You need to calm down. I'm the professional at this. I've done this so much, so you just need to fall in line. In my mind, Z has shown herself to be a toxic Bernie bro through and through. And I just don't see any success for that ever.
NF America thing.
Oh my God, it's my boy Charlie again. Thank you so much.
So out of all the things that Triple H here wants to respond to, you as a bigot want to respond to another bigot. No, respond and respond to the fact that you literally used microaggressions against black women and was being racist towards them in that live. Sis, talk about it. What you being scary for? Talk about it. You ain't got no room to be clocking no Trump supporters when you as a white T person yourself is literally using microaggressions against black women. No. Quit being a puss and talk about it.
All are trash. Like, y'all are so trash. I want you to know that I'm talking to you, so I'm going to say your name, then I'm going to call you trash.
This video might get me into legal trouble, but you guys gave me a platform for a reason, and I'm not going to take that for granted fucking ever. Remember that. Remember that. I know who gave me this platform. I'm on my way to Texas for the Unfuck America tour. Basically, they sponsored a trip for a bunch of us creators to go and fuck with Charlie Kirk at Texas A&M. And at first, I was a little apprehensive to take it because I don't like the Jubilee fucking, we're here to debate, I'm not going to platform conservatives, whatever, like stupid bullshit, right? I don't fucking like that shit. But a lot of my friends, people that I've grown to like on this app who are very intelligent, were going, and I was like, oh wow, okay, cool, so maybe this is something completely different. I ended up signing on, right? Turns out the lead organizer who is horrible at organizing, by the way. I want to point that out. Had no clue, still have no clue what the fuck we're even going there to do. I actually have a whole other plan planned. I don't know what the fuck anybody else is doing, but I'm going there to do something actually dope as fuck. But anyway, the lead organizer, turns out she's incredibly racist. She hopped on a live last night where a bunch of black women, women creators on this app, who are obviously in the political space, were a little upset, voicing their concerns, talking about how they felt about the Unfuck America tour. And the lead organizer didn't like that very much, and so she hopped on there to spew, anti-black rhetoric, especially towards black women, making them sound like bullies and aggressive, and it was really gross. It was really gross. There's no way you watch this and don't think she's racist, by the way. Like, I went into it going like, what happened? Is this a, you know what I mean? Like, I need to make sure what happened before I come and give any information to anybody, okay? There is no other way to interpret what she did. She was just being racist. Like telling them that because black women are involved, and how could it be problematic they didn't invite black women on this trip doing the thing that black women have been doing the best forever? I also want to point out, before she joined, they were being incredibly respectful from what I saw, okay? And even if they weren't, you're the fucking organizer for Unfuck America. You're the face of the brand. You're the one reaching out to creators. You reached out to me. Who the fuck cares if someone has an opinion of Unfuck America that doesn't jive with whatever the fuck you think it is? I don't know that her views reflect that of the entirety of the Unfuck America tour. So, personally, I have one gripe with one person, the person who organized this, who was the person who decided not to include a lot of black women on this trip. And I also think I can do her job better than her. So here's what I want you guys to do. Down below, tag your favorite BIPOC women creators. Okay, tag them below so they see this video. And if you guys see this video, if you can make it to Texas A&M on April 22nd, right? April 22nd, let's all meet up. Let's all make some content together. Let's all grow your platforms to the size that mine are, while telling Unfuck America to go fuck itself until they get this racist out of the organization spot. Deal? Deal. Okay. Unfuck America, feel free to reach out to me because I'm sure you're gonna have a lot of questions about this video, and I'm very sorry to tell you this, but I do not care. Also want to point out for the record, my views are my views alone. Any creators that I may be involved with or friends with, they do not share the same sentiments. However, if you are a creator friend of mine, we're probably friends because I think you're dope as shit. So if you want to meet up while we're at Texas A&M, shoot me a DM or something like that. A couple of you were already meeting up, obviously. Love you guys. I also want to say that I'm sorry to everyone that follows me. I know you expect more from me, and there will be more in the future. There's no excuse. I should have been more discerning with who I was doing business with, and I will be in the future. Feel free to reach out to me because I'm sure you're going to have a lot of questions about this video, and I'm very sorry to tell you this, but I do not care. I received these text messages the morning after I posted that video from the subject of that video, the organizer of the Unfuck America tour. She started off by saying, "Have you returned the rental car we paid for?" Just an insane thing out the gate. I've heard nothing from this person, and the first thing they say is like, "Have you returned the rental car?" No, because I'm a racist, right? I did all these racially motivated things, right? So like, you want to return that racist car, right? Because like, you don't want to be associated with me. And so I said, did I break contract? Because I couldn't remember if I signed a contract, if I'm being 100% honest. So after I sent that message, I checked my email. Turns out I did not sign a contract, which makes her next response really weird. She said, yes, I did sign a contract. I signed a contract that didn't exist apparently. And then she said, the car has been called in to be returned today. Will you be returning it? And I was like, we never received the call. This car's in our name. We never received the call to be returned. And then I asked what I broke exactly, and she said the car is due to be returned at 5 p.m. Thanks. No clarification on the contract that I didn't sign, no clarification on why the car had to be returned all of a sudden. And so I said I would appreciate clarification on a couple of things. Number one, how did I break contract? You know, I never signed a contract, so how could I break a contract that I never signed? And then I said, two, what contract did I break? Because again, I didn't sign a contract, so I don't know what contract I would have broken. And number three, how am I expected to return a car a week earlier while I'm 20 hours away from where I would be dropping it off so that you can get some of your money back whenever you have the time is completely fine. And I've yet to get a response from her, but fingers crossed. And later on that day, I got a phone call from the coordinator of this trip, and this is that phone call in its entirety.
Hello?
Hey, Peyton. Sorry, I was driving in a dead zone.
Oh, you're fine.
So I'm not kind of sure what you heard there, but
I didn't hear anything.
Oh, okay. So, I mean, yeah, the last few days have happened. They've been what they've been, and, you know, it's in the past. I think the most important step right now is kind of what happens immediately, what happens kind of going forward. And, you know, I will say, I know you're still planning on coming to Texas this week. We have made sure that our security knows that if you come anywhere near the influencers, we've had a number of them say they've been uncomfortable with this situation, so they're going to remove you from any private property that we're at. That being said, the university is public property. If you're going to show up, you're going to show up. I would advise against it. I think there's going to be a significant amount of drama and chaos there. And I mean, if that's the point of this, then, you know, that is what it is. And there's nothing that I'm going to say that's going to talk you out of that. But I just, you know, advise you to look within and figure out what the best option for you and your content and your following and your conscience going forward is.
Yeah. Okay.
The rental car needs to be returned in Philly on the 28th.
Yeah,
if it goes after, then I've told the rental car company they've got permission to report it as stolen. And
okay.
That's just, you know, what we do as a company policy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, obviously, yeah.
We've gone ahead and we're going to pull you off the website tomorrow. We've gone ahead and deactivated your ActBlue link, so that's, you know, kind of good on our end. Is there anything on your end that you wanted to bring up or talk about?
I don't know what would have made anybody uncomfortable about me calling her out, I guess, personally.
I mean, she was standing up for her people. I mean, I watched the live. I heard it. I think that we had incredibly different interpretations of what was said, as does the fact that, you know, we haven't had a single influencer decide or reconsider their involvement in the tour other than yourself.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
As the lead organizer, is it the best look when being told not to go up there to go up there anyway and behave the way she did? Because honest to God, these are 5 people who have nothing to do with any of this at all, who were just voicing opinions that they had. I don't care if they said that we should all die, you know what I mean? Like, is that the best look for her to be doing? Especially as a white woman, I will say.
I think that she's always been very overprotective of the people that work for her and that support her. And she felt like those people were being called out in an unfair manner, and her mama bear energy kind of took over and it happened. And, you know, I think that that's an admirable trait to have. Whether the energy was channeled in the best way is really up for an individual kind of perspective. But
and the individuals involved did feel that it was racially motivated, correct?
I mean, I haven't heard them say that themselves.
They did in the comments of my video, actually. You can go check if you'd like.
No, I'll definitely have my team continue to look into that and explore that.
Phenomenal. Okay.
Alrighty, well, you know, this is myself. If you have anything else, I'm more than happy to speak with you, and yeah.
Fantastic, thank you.
I hope you get what you want out of this.
Thank you.
Have a good night, Peyton.
You too. And to top it all off, later that night, I had a conversation with a fellow content creator who I used to like, who used to be friends with me, and this is how that conversation went. I said, hey, he said, yeah. I said, I hoped we could still be friends. If not, wanted to say, I like the work you do and best of luck. And then he starts telling me what I'm doing isn't okay, that I'm making the other BIPOC people on the tour feel so fucking uncomfortable with what I'm doing and posting. And he tells me that I should know better. What's the point of picking the same fights that have been tearing the left apart? If I believed in the ultimate goal, which I should, we don't have time for these trivial problems. These trivial problems. These trivial problems. And the first thing that bugged me, the first thing that I asked him about was the fact that I didn't hear about any BIPOC creators who would have cared about my video. I've not lost friends over this. And also, why would it matter if they did find it some sort of way? Like, why would that matter in the case of her being racist? So after I got these messages from him, I started to think, why the fuck is everyone focused on the video that I made? The video that I made. The fact that my video was uncalled for. I shouldn't have made that video. I'm just trying to divide people, and not the actions of the subject of the video. But we'll circle back to that point. I said, if we take these things lightly now, we end up back here eventually. I don't know what you mean by arm themselves. I didn't call out any creators whatsoever in that video, and I have nothing but respect for the people involved outside of the person who chose to put herself in that position and behaved in that manner. That's not okay. And if we don't call it out when it happens, this shit adds up. I said the reason we keep having these same fights is because shit like this keeps happening and swiftly pushed aside as an overreaction and counter to the cause. Like it's something to be addressed later, like the problems of black people always are when it comes to the rest of these movements. All of the progress we've made in this country has been built on the backs of black women organizing, putting in the work, getting on the ground, and then when they raise any concerns whatsoever, they're swiftly pushed aside as counter to the movement, counter to the cause, something to be addressed later. He says, dude, fucking stop. You are doing the exact shit you are pretending to fight right now. How? And then he says, I'm way too white to have an opinion on this when the people on the tour who are BIPOC that I am making uncomfortable don't feel this way. I need to stop. We'll get back to the way too white thing in a second, but again, stop using the opinions of black people as a political tool to make your fucking point. Just because Candace Owens agrees with the right doesn't mean that all black people do. And if you feel like me interjecting myself to call out a racist white woman is me being way too white to consider her actions racist, especially when I'm echoing the voices of the black women who were on that live receiving her racist statements. And anyone would know that if anyone reached out to them whatsoever, instead of being like, what does my black friend think about this? And so I broke down for him exactly why Z's actions were not acceptable. I said 4 hours into a live, being told not to interject herself, not just because she's a white woman and shouldn't, but because she's the face of organizing for this entire tour, because she can say nothing to help and it's not her place. She still hopped on, she immediately started talking down to them, and yes, intentionally or unintentionally, spoke in microaggressions and was racist towards them, and it gave horrible optics to the campaign. And then she tried to lie about contracts that I didn't sign, and she did all of this while taking zero accountability. And I said, this is what creates broken systems and twisted change. A foundation of things we should have been calling out if only the timing were right. And I said, there is a world where we can fight against this regime while not also being racist and allowing people who behave in this manner to lead our campaigns, and we live in that world. And I said, now it's getting a little concerning seeing absolutely nobody else even acknowledging any wrongdoing whatsoever, whether you feel my video or reaction were justified, not at least admitting to an overprotectiveness that presented as racially charged statements and sentiments is disappointing. I said, I'm also not too white to call out someone who I was linked to professionally, who I witnessed behave in an incredibly unprofessional and racist manner. It's not right to allow it to be swept under the rug, which is exactly what would have happened as it did in the past for her. I don't need help getting views. I'm not doing this for clout. I could give a fuck about money. We are doing this because it's right. I said, if we are truly focused on combating regression and not just clicks and views, which are important, that also includes calling this behavior and those who perpetuate it out. And he said, K dude, make your choices. And I fucking am. I promise this isn't something random. This is all relevant. Guess what? Do you see this nice car? Do you see this BMW? Guess who rented that BMW for me? I'll give you a million guesses. It's the Unfuck America Tour. So they rented me this car, not for like 2 days, right? They rented this car for me for 2 full weeks. Every other creator was flying out there, right? That's what I heard. Oh, we're booking flights, right? And I was like, hey, what if I rented a car? And they were like, how long do you need it? And I was like, 2 weeks, I guess. Like, you know what I mean? Drove to Colorado. We're here in Colorado. Obviously didn't go to Texas. Now, why is this important? This is important because I know that some black creators who were going on this tour had to pay their own way. They paid for their own travel or lodging or both. That is not okay. I'm getting these things, barely even asking, getting these things. And these people have to pay their own way. Why? I think we can find the answer in the fact that there were black creators who were asked to go on this trip and felt like it was an afterthought because they were only asked after people were noting a lack of diversity on this trip. Now, I'm not saying this is true, but it does seem like, and it's being echoed by the people involved, that you were reaching out to black creators late in the game because you had a noted lack of diversity that people were questioning about this tour. And instead of reallocating resources and being like, we need to correct our mistake ourselves, you left it up to these black creators to pay their own way instead of admitting your mistake and owning up to it and facing the consequences. And that's not okay, especially when I was asked late in the game and I got all of these things. I was not asked that long ago to go on this trip, and I know of at least one black creator who was asked before me to go on this trip and still had to pay their own way. And that is not okay. That's why these things matter. We cannot take these things lightly when they happen just because you think this person who genuinely, truly has things to deconstruct should be in a position where it is crucial she is making the right decisions. And we've already touched on it a couple times in this video, but the thing that I want to leave you guys with is this. We have to stop this, well, we have our cake, what are we supposed to eat it too? Mentality. There is no reason why we can't call these people out for having to still deconstruct. It's fine. You're still deconstructing your racism. But we have to call these people out and push them to the back of the line until they have figured out how to address these things within themselves. She does not have to be in this organization position, and the idea that you guys are protecting her out of some sort of like, well, it's going to ruin the movement. It's infuriating. Imagine how many people would have gotten on board if you guys heard about this and said, wow, fuck this person. Who should we have in this? What mistakes did we make? Get her to the back of the fucking line. She has a lot of things to figure out. Maybe we have something else that she can do that's not involving these critical decisions that need to be made for this massive tour. We can absolutely call out this behavior and get people like this out of organizing positions while moving the movement forward, like while progressing. I don't understand why whenever the voices of black women or black people in general are raised during times like this, when microaggressions like this are happening, we look back 20 years on that and we go, wow, that behavior was awful. If only we would have called it out at the time. We can call it out at the time and get her out of this position while having someone more qualified to organize it. It doesn't make sense why everyone would be so apprehensive to this unless it's just about fucking money. But that's not why we do this. We do not do this for money. We do this to progress. We do this to build community. And you cannot build community without black women. You can't build community without black people. And constantly trying to silence them and call their behavior out as aggressive, their behavior out as counter to the movement. What do you guys mean you're calling all this stuff out? Well, then she got up there to be a mama bear, and now what? She's a bad guy for that? Yes. We have to stop this behavior or it's gonna keep ending up this way. It will keep ending up this way over and over and over and over again because little things like this, they add up. They lead to a fractured foundation and eventually it will all collapse again and we will be right fucking back here. And to the massive creators who absolutely knew about this behavior prior to going to this event, which absolutely bombed, we know who you are. And if you want, I can show proof. All evidence being used in this video against any person or entity has been backed up by first-hand accounts, second-hand accounts, and screenshots, so you can put your lawyers away. You're not getting me this time. And with that out of the way, what the fuck happened with the Unfuck America tour, you might be asking, because I've gotten a million DMs about it, because nobody's story is matching up except for mine, and things keep getting weirder. But don't worry, I have all the answers to all of your questions, and I've broken them down into 5 categories. Number 1, which creators are lying? Number 2, where is the money? Number 3, why does this matter? And number 4, how do we continue? All wrapped around this woman, Elizabeth Z. Cohen Sanchez. But we'll get to you in a second, Lizzie. First, we're going to talk about these creators because most of the confusion being caused right now is by them blatantly lying. These are the creators we'll be talking about, and I want to start with Andra because I want to start with Andra. So this is Andra. You might have seen Andra on your For You page. She's the one that talks like this out of the side of her mouth so that people won't hear her lying all the fucking time. And we're starting with Andra for a very specific reason. I'll get to it in a second. First, let's hear her response video to this entire Z being racist situation.
If you're not familiar with what happened, I'll explain. The National Ground Game PAC started a group called Un-F America, in which Dean Withers and Parker were headlining, and we were going to go and debate Charlie Kirk on college campuses. I was very excited about this because combating red pill, misinformation, pipeline stuff is very important to me, and that's kind of what the whole thing was about. So I signed on immediately, and then apparently our organizer, Z, joined a panel full of black women and said a lot of microaggressive and racist comments. And that's what it was. Point blank, no excusing it. And I want to be clear, I don't support any of that. What she said was messed up. And the second I found out about it, I voiced my opinion in our group chat strongly. In fact, I started a lot of fights about it. Because if you know me, the last thing I'm going to do is bite my tongue unless I'm literally so sick in bed that I cannot take a phone call.
Okay, she was sick. That's why she couldn't respond. But of course, she hates Z. She hates all of the things that Z did. And oh, you bald-faced liar, you racist little fuck. You were there during the live, and when Z was on the live, and after Z got off the live. You were on your spam account trolling them. You were saying that black women on that live were miserable, that they were just attacking Z to attack her, that they were just yapping to yap. And later on, you were talking about how you were losing mutuals because you weren't speaking out about this situation. And you most definitely did not immediately get mad at Z and tell her to fuck off and you know what? I'm going to say it, racism's bad. That's not you. That's not what you did. I can say for damn sure there was nowhere in those signal chats that night where you were like, hey Z, that was racist, or hey guys, that wasn't cool. No, and you all heard her. Apparently our organizer Z hopped on a live with a panel full of black women and said some microaggressive and racist things. And that's what they were. That full stop, period. You do support it. You did. You supported it. You were there supporting her.
The second I found out about it, I voiced my opinion in our group chat strongly.
Well, hey, you were voicing your opinion very strongly. strongly. It's just not the opinion you were implying, but still strongly nonetheless.
Because if you know me, the last thing I'm going to do is bite my tongue unless I'm literally so sick in bed that I cannot take a phone call.
I guess we could see this as biting your tongue, but you were okay with all of it. You didn't care about any of this shit. Now, Andra, I don't want any excuse for you to try and report my video. So I'm just going to say you have some growing to do. I don't think we should be entrusting you with the platform right now. Next up, we have Offjawagon. A lot of you guys correctly assumed he was the person that sent me these DMs from that previous video. And what was his story again?
I want to be very clear that I and the majority of people who joined this fight did so because we are fighting for equality, whether it's class equality, gender equality, marriage equality, and definitely racial equality. So when there's allegations of racist comments against an organizer in the group that I was a part of, I had some concerns. I was not present for any of these comments. I did not understand the context of any of these comments, and I'd gotten a dozen conflicting stories from a dozen different people because, you know, it's the fucking internet.
So he wasn't present for any of these comments. He got conflicting stories. You know, what's a guy supposed to do? Oh. That's a pretty distinct name. Okay, Peyton, so he's lying to his audience like the rest of these people are. Who cares? What's the big deal? Well, believe it or not, later on in that video, this dipshit made a crucial error on behalf of himself and all of his creator buddies who are trying to lie to you right now. Let's take a listen and then I'll explain.
What I did is I went and met up in person with a couple of people of color who were involved, a couple of whom who were present and did understand the context of those comments. And I asked them, where are you at on this and what do you need from me? And they said they were excited to move forward. They were still in support of the mission and the organization. And at this point, that's all. I was like, cool, if you guys are in, I'm in. If you're out, I'm out. Where you guys go, I follow. I am here to support this mission. And that's what I did. I'm proud of that. I'm proud of the mission. I'm proud of the work we accomplished. And I'm proud of the vast majority of people I got to do that with. However, another pasty-ass creator decided to go a different route and make videos exploiting the issue for views and clout. And he did this despite being told by numerous people of color involved that they did not want him doing this. They did not want him speaking for them and that his actions were making them feel incredibly uncomfortable.
So he obviously didn't catch what he did. A lot of you probably didn't either. Some of you might have, but I'll break it down. So what he's trying to do here is perpetuate the narrative that I made people of color on the tour feel uncomfortable. But he's doing it differently than some people are. Some people are saying that it was after my second video that I made them uncomfortable. But obviously before my second video is when these messages were shared between him and I. He even said it himself.
I followed that person immediately after realizing that they were willing to exploit marginalized groups for their own gain. And they reached out to me. And he's like, dude, I hope we can still be friends. He was trying to defend his actions. And while I was sitting next to two people of color who were involved with the whole thing, who had literally just told me that they were feeling uncomfortable and unsafe because of his actions, and that they were being harassed and having slurs I can't repeat hurled at them online because of his videos, I told him that he needed to stop. That if he really cared about the things that he was pretending to care about, this was not it.
But it seems like he's also trying to say that people of color felt uncomfortable by me before I even made my first video. They were telling me not to do my first video. But that's not the case, and that video wasn't about anyone who was on the tour. So why are they lying about this? It's because they're all following the playbook that Brandon and Z set up. See, after I made my video, they actually deactivated the Signal group chat for a little while, right? None of the influencers were allowed in there. They just had a staff meeting, right? And Brandon's telling everybody, listen, I've worked in PR crisis management for 7 years. I've got this. Nobody say anything. Let me handle this. And then he calls me. If you go back, don't even think about Z. Listen to the first half of that phone call, and it seems like I did something wrong that's getting me kicked off the tour. And Z's first message to me after my video was, have you returned the car we paid for? And at first I thought it was like a narcissistic thing, which it is, obviously, because it's Z, but it makes a lot more sense in the context of them acting as if we've already had a conversation and they're kicking me off the tour for my behavior. And just for good measure, here's some of the scripts they came up with for their little plan. So everyone, I would like to extend a thank you to Offjawagon for being dumb enough to do this. These are just miscellaneous pieces of shit. I've never seen their content personally. I just know about their whole interactions with this tour and with this situation, and they are garbage. Hey, Dean, I know we've talked before, but you've got a lot of explaining to do. See, I know a secret you've been keeping. You betrayed the creators on this tour and your audience who donated to this tour because you knew about Z a week before that live even happened. Note the time and date of the first message, and here's a screen recording of all of the messages, and you can see that Dean absolutely saw these. He was told that Z doesn't like paying her employees a week before this live even happened, and he didn't tell any of us creators. I was still on the tour. I hadn't been kicked off. Didn't hear a goddamn thing about this, Dean. And then come to find out, you were partying with Z at Texas A&M after everything went down. But when you said you were all torn up after the live, but you really knew that you needed to be there for your fans, you lying bitch. So just to be clear, you knew about her deceptive business practices beforehand and decided not to say anything to your audience who kept donating to the Unfuck America tour, and not to say anything to the creators who were professionally linked to her. But no harm, no foul. It's not like any money went missing, right? Did somebody say money? I know everyone has heard by now that the creators are not getting the money they were promised, and $100,000 seemingly vanished into thin air. But I think I know exactly where it went, right into Zico and Sanchez's pocket. These are screenshots from the FEC's website for the National Ground Game campaign, and you'll notice there's $95,000 sent to a company called Soul Strategies. Well, that seems like a lot of money, Peyton, but why is that so weird? Well, guess who the founder and owner of Soul Strategies is? If you guessed our girl Z, you would be right, except for between between 2020 and 2023 when she was pretending it was a black-owned business while giving a black woman only 15% of the company and making her do all of the work while calling her lazy and a piece of shit. So if you're following me here, Z Cohen Sanchez from the National Ground Game Pack, we know Z, she gave Z Cohen Sanchez of Soul Strategies, I think you guys know her, $95,000 for voter registration efforts. Me personally, $95,000 is an insane amount of money to spend on voter registration efforts from a company that was sued for fraudulent voter registration efforts. But I guess when you're the sender and the receiver, you can kind of make up your own rules. I also found money being sent to places like this, with websites like this. Can somebody spell money laundering? And if that wasn't enough for you, I have unequivocal proof of her engaging in illegal activities just this morning. This email was sent this morning to someone who works for Z, who was supposed to be paid on Friday, still hadn't been paid, reached out to them, and they said, you have to sign an NDA to get the pay that you're owed. Hey, that's fucking illegal. That's really fucking illegal. Even if she doesn't go through with this, that's incredibly illegal. You can't tell someone they have to sign an NDA to get the pay they're owed. Cherry on top, obviously she's a flaming fucking racist, and most of us in the know already fucking knew that, but here's her being a piece of shit otherwise. I do know a lot more, but I'm not gonna give you it, obviously, because where's the fun in that? All I can say is, you are fucked, and anybody who helped you, Dean, is fucked as well. You knowingly defrauded the creators on the tour and their audiences who continue donating to the tour. Why does this matter? The rest of this video is going to be freeform, and I'm going to tell you guys right now, I'm pretty fucking pissed. Because even if I want to believe that I went about it the wrong way, and that's why you guys treated me the way that you did, why the fuck did you treat these women the way you did? You know, those black women from that live that Z was incredibly racist on, that you guys were ha-ha and laughing about? But even after coming out and saying like, hey, she did behave in a microaggressive and racist way in political talk, you still wouldn't let them up on your live. What the fuck? You know, when you're apologizing for how you handled the situation that was directly involving them and the aggression towards them. Really weird you didn't want them up on your live. That's insane. It's almost like none of you guys fucking care about the shit that you claim to care about. And I'm talking about everyone on the tour, but specifically the white creators, the ones that love to fucking virtue signal and be like, and that's something I don't stand for, but I stood for it and I was egging it on. And on that sentiment, to those of you entering the comment sections of the black creators who were on this trip using my name to justify you berating them, shut your fucking mouths. You don't speak for me. That's not what I'm about. I know they're lying. I don't fucking care. Focus your time and energy on not only following these creators right here, and making sure you're unfollowing these creators right here, these creators. You cannot be following these people. They are fucking liars. They will blatantly lie to cover their asses to make more money. They cannot be trusted. Fuck these people. And how do we continue? Well, first it starts with not letting these fucking people in these goddamn spaces. Stop letting the Deans, the Parkers, the Zs, the Andras, the XY white person lead these movements. Especially when they know fuck all about organizing and fuck all about these situations. They're just there for fucking money and to be debate bros. Fucking kick them to the curb. They're counter to the movement at this point. And I say counter to the movement because the movement is progress. And silencing these voices and saying it's trivial and saying that we're focused on the mission at hand. How can we fight fascism and also fight racism? They're the same fucking thing. The reason they act so fucking obtuse in any situation like this is because they know if they have to stop for even a second to deconstruct, they will start losing money. Very quickly, they will learn that they don't know fucking anything. And they'll have to take a back seat to voices like these. It's always about fucking money with these people. You know what? Actually, fuck it. I'm just gonna speak candidly for a second. Fuck all of these people. Like, actually, I swear to God, these people are fucking evil. They only care about money. It does not matter. Their bottom line is what matters. Sure, they're not gonna take money from Charlie Kirk, but hey, a racist like Z? I mean, she says she's for the cause, so like, and here we are. Oh, this is trivial bullshit. What? She said a couple microaggressions. What? Micro, by the way. No, she was a fucking racist piece of shit on that live. That's what she was, and none of you wanted to call it out. I actually don't give a fuck anymore. You guys are sad, dude. All of you people are sad. You can't make money without the racist? Is that what it is? Obviously, I know your platforms shrivel and die if the Conservative Party does, but I mean, like, you can't find a different, like, liberal white woman, right? Like, you can't find someone else. You had to try and cover it up. You had to try and lie. But the only reason you were acting that way was to try and cover your guys' ass and use me as a scapegoat. And hey, look at how well that did you. All of you are fucking sad and don't deserve these goddamn platforms. Fuck you.
First, I want to say it's not like I'm surprised, right? I mean, like, I've always had a weird feeling about people like Parker and Dean and Harry and all them, because I've always viewed them as having very weird, out-of-whack priorities against what should be a larger political project of trying to strive for more liberatory politics, period. But I do want to say one thing, though, which is, Peyton, my man, you should think about going into a career as a journalist, because you could have convinced me after all this time that you were actually just trying to embed yourself inside of opportunistic liberal movements, because... bravo, your ability to communicate a narrative while having the evidence to support that narrative, as opposed to having a narrative and then construing evidence to fit it, was very well done. Really enjoyed that video. Really, really good.
The situation going on with the Unfuck America tour is a perfect example of how racism and capitalism work together in tandem to uphold these systems on the liberal side of the coin. So, like, if you want to see what racism, capitalism, corrupting a movement looks like from the liberal end, this Unfuck America tour, if you fall down the rabbit hole, just type it in and see everything that's going on. This is exactly why we in the situation that we in today. Yes, sir. Now, the bastardization and the commodification of the Black Lives Matter movement, we talked about that ad nauseum. The nation couldn't shut the fuck up about it. And what do we learn from that, right? Black faces in high places, it don't really mean a motherfucking thing, because capitalism and racism is always going to put the hand in the pot and corrupt whatever the fuck got going on, right? So this time, the lesson is from the perspective of those liberals and other people of color liberals that claim they want to dismantle these systems but aren't really ready to reckon with the pillars and the roots of the tree that really hold this motherfucker up, because they participate in the same behavior and then call it trivial shit. Yeah. Like, give us your time, give us your labor, but we don't want your input, and we don't want you to be bringing up all these little issues that don't really impact us, or we don't really give a fuck, because we're trying to commodify and we're trying to capitalize off of this movement. So shut the fuck up and help us and give us your labor, or you're going to get kicked to the curb and dogpiled on social media. Violence does not always come from the hand. This is like a micro example of like how macro systems function. If you fall down a rabbit hole through the lens that I'm giving you, and you'll see exactly what the fuck I'm saying. At this point, the seeds planted work so good, the CIA not even getting overtime no more. They probably missed when they was running up that check because they had work to do. Now y'all do it for them. That young man, Peyton specifically, I believe that's his name. Peyton specifically, you could tell by the anger in his voice for the very first time, he's seeing what it feels like for you to want liberation for all, but to be forced to be in community or around people that want liberation, asterisk mark. Their liberation comes with the asterisk. And the quiet part out loud is, 9 times out of 10, no matter who it is, that asterisk is usually black people.
Y'all haven't seen the video that Peyton dropped today about Z and the whole Unfuck America tour operation. You guys need to go check that out. But if you don't know me, my name's Allison. I do political debates, and Z has sent me a cease and desist. I have like 5 other videos covering this from start to finish throughout the process. Right now, I just want to talk about the screenshots that Peyton flew by in his video. And to present these screenshots in a way that we can read them a little easier, I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation. This is for your personal interpretation. Let's get started.
Okay, so I'm not going to mention what I'm actually talking about in this video because I think that for whatever reason, TikTok doesn't want me to. But I'm going to share some thoughts I have about this and hopefully you guys can piece it together. So right now, there was a video going around where this leftist who's in a little bit of hot water for, you know, being racist, common conversation we end up having on here, is making the argument that the criticism that she's receiving right now is why so many people leave the left and end up going to MAGA. And here's the thing. We do need to grant this premise. We do need to entertain the reality, which is that there are a lot of people, let's just be frank, we're talking about white people. There are a lot of white people who maybe grew up more conservative because of their family, right? They grew up in bastions of whiteness where they were separated from people of color and they were able to be really ignorant about some shit. Then they went away to college, right? Then they started to meet different people and then they started to shift a little bit more to the left. And that process for them was a lot of work. It was really, really stressful. And because they started to know certain people from these groups, because they broke out of their white bastion and went into a more diverse community, they were able to kind of start to really genuinely develop a bit of empathy, right? But now we're in a situation where stuff is starting to get kind of real for a lot of people. And some of us who actually suffer under this have to sort of make a decision about who exactly we give our time, energy, attention, and consideration to. And the problem with the situation we're in right now is the amount of time that it genuinely takes for someone to really, truthfully, realistically unpack bias versus the amount of time we really have, right, between now and when things get so much worse is actually quite small, right? It's very, very small. And so there are a lot of people who are sick of seeing, for example, the anti-blackness on the leftist side because they recognize that it's actually now going to end up becoming a liability, right? Anti-blackness, especially right now, I think some people, for whatever reason, haven't pieced this together, is substantially more dangerous to Black people, right? And some people who have shifted their perspective over the years to be more left look at some of the criticism that Black people have of what they're doing, and they get frustrated and they become angry that people aren't celebrating them for their growth. And suddenly the position they used to be in starts to seem a little bit more, safe for them. And that's because that's where they actually are, right? They're really only willing to do these things if it keeps them safe. And I think that over the years, we've tried to have conversations about performative activism. We've tried to have conversations about how you may be making these posts online, but for people who have an interaction with you, sometimes they experience that you still have ism. And then people do this thing. And this is what's really frustrating, where instead of hearing that criticism, they stomp their feet and say, but I've changed so much, but I'm so much less racist than my friends and family that I've walked away from in order to be on the left, right? And I don't think that a lot of people who have this mentality register that when you treat anti-blackness as a conversation that we can never have at any stage of anything, you really are solidly communicating that you are racist. And what's a bit frustrating to me, the meta conversation about a lot of this is, a lot of you just don't want to admit that you're racist. And I'm not trying to say that as like some sort of power thing that I'm not trying to, some people think that whenever we do this thing where we call people racist, it's about us gaining something from it, right? Like there's this way that a lot of white people literally cannot comprehend people talking about racism without trying to make money about it or trying to draw attention to themselves or just try, self victimhood, right? Like a lot of white people, they genuinely struggle to comprehend two really basic things, right? They struggle to comprehend that they are racist. And as an extension of that, maybe because of that, they struggle to understand how deep-seated racism is. A lot of people have not really registered that when you are a white person organizing something that is predominantly about the de-radicalization of white people, right? And you view anti-blackness as a conversation that is a waste of time, that is derailing, that is ruining things, that is, making, a bigger issue of something that doesn't need to be made a big issue of. All you're going to cultivate naturally is a group of people who are racist. And I think that that's what people are always trying to communicate to you. And trust me, look, you guys, I've been around for a while. I've had these conversations for so long. It's the same conversation over and over and over again in the same response. You have these people who want the street cred for being anti-racist, but then when they move in ways that seem racist, they point at the things that they only did performatively as evidence of them not being racist, not understanding that there were certain decisions that you would just make if you weren't racist, right? See, the problem is, and I think this is actually kind of another meta conversation, we've started to think of politics as this thing that we perform, this set of actions, these posts that we make on the internet, right? Making sure that we put pronouns in our bio or say free Palestine, right? But there's our actions that I think, in my opinion, matter so much more. You can say that you are opposed to anti-blackness, but when you constantly treat Black people as if they exist in a paternal position beneath you, as if they could never possibly comprehend the little bit of experience that you have, right? As if every one of their concerns is a derailment, as if every single thing they have to contribute is not really something that should be focused on or centered, but simply something that should be, hand waved and acknowledged publicly as a show of performance of your so-called anti-blackness, right? You have to understand that when it's all performative, it's never actually useful. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. And the mistake I think some people make is they pretend. And here's really what I really want to communicate in this video. I do wish that more leftists were honest about them being racist. Right? And I'm not one of these people who's like, "Oh my God, leftists are racist" or whatever. Like, I already know that there's a good amount of people who are leftists who are not doing the bullshit that's on here. When I say this, I'm really referring to this brand of TikTok leftist that ends up getting the most fucking attention. And they get the most attention for a reason, right? So many of you are just, you're doing this thing where you conflate your marketability under capitalism in a white supremacist system with having the most important, most experienced, most informed voice in the conversation. And it's not true. And I honestly do think that for some of these white creators, there is a degree of envy they have. And I've never really been able to explain what this is. I do think sometimes they have like an envy for how Black women especially are tapped into like the source, right? They're tapped into what it actually feels like to be oppressed in this country. And some of these people, they have to read about it. And I think that what happens is whenever we have these conversations, they always think that we're having them to destroy whatever they're doing because it's a grift for most of them, right? They never think that we're just trying to help you do better. It's always antagonistic. And if you read some of those messages, you really do get that understanding that they are never really able to really ever hear that criticism from Black people is not necessarily cancellation. I've had that conversation so many times on here. There have been so many times I've tried to have dialogue with white leftists on here, and instead it's been interpreted as beef or antagonism. And we're really never going to go anywhere until you guys work on that.
That's okay.
I'm not saying you did. I'm just saying.
In general.
Let's not do it.
Yeah. I know. It's just as soon as I came down on the panel, you already were going crazy at me. But okay.
But I don't. She wasn't saying anything. She was muted.
So I'm just gonna.
Crazy. Let's not do that.
Wait, hold on. Wait, I don't like that. See, let me make this very clear. No, Julianne came up after I already let you up, to be fair. Second of all, the reason why you were getting
was Shane.
Second of all, the reason why you got any energy from any of us, particularly me, because I was the one that first to mute you, was because you completely cut off what I was trying to say to be antagonistic, specifically towards like what we're trying to talk about in here.
Well, I do think that this live is antagonistic. But anyway, I'm just going to say my piece and I'm going to drop.
Oh.
So, but,
okay. Wait, hold on. So you don't want to have a conversation about this at all? See? I actually, we're all here because literally the questions, I'm not sure how long have you been in here, by the way?
So I've only been in here for about 10 minutes. When you guys were yelling at Hannah, I came in. So I
is this the person? I'm sorry.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? Is this the person that is behind the tour?
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I said that. Perfect that she's up here.
So can we get an answer to Allie's question first? Can we get it before she
starts? I don't.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so just so there's no confusion, like I said, y'all, I told y'all, come on out. We've got to let them speak.
No. Hold on, Allie, because your question wasn't answered.
I'm going back to it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna ask it again really quickly. So Z, yeah, I'm just curious, why the tour and why the setup and exactly was the point just to tell Charlie Kirk F you, or can you dive a little bit? No, I'm adding more to it, but yeah, that was.
But I'm talking about, is she here to have a conversation, or she's just gonna spew and then?
Oh, the second question. That is a good point. Z, I know you said that you wanted to leave soon. Are you here to actually have a conversation and explain or expand a little bit more on this?
We can have a short conversation. I just can't stay up here long because I have to get on the meeting. But
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, but no, I mean, I appreciate pushback in any respect. Obviously, I'm an organizer. I'm used to that. But the point I wanted to bring up to start with is that I think that having conversations where we say things like, this is so unorganized, which came out of multiple people's mouths, things like that, are directly harming the people of color that are behind this tour, that are working tirelessly to make this happen. And I'm just telling you guys that because I know that you don't know, okay? But the majority of the people behind this tour that are staying up late, working on this, because this is not easy. You think that getting 50 plus people to another state to do this is easy? Because it's not, right? And so we have young people that are putting everything into this, that are scared of this administration. And then people are saying that they're unorganized.
There's
and
so as somebody who's done organizing within her own community, that's why I'm saying this.
So you're saying,
she has to be able to respond to one thing at a time. No, she has to be able to respond to one thing at a time.
Are you seriously saying right now, I want to remind you, room of black women in here, okay? Are you seriously saying that because other people of color are also working on this tour, that we cannot critique when things are done in bad faith?
That's not what I said. And you assuming, Julie, you assuming that it's in bad faith.
What the fuck is going on?
Wait, I don't let people talk over me either. And I see that that's what you do. That you try to bully people.
Exactly.
And I don't
Exactly.
That's very, but I'm just telling you that there are people of color that are working behind the scenes that is harmful to.
Yeah, and as a person of color, as black women who have also been organizing, we have a right.
This is how we're going to do it. We're going to let
I respond to what she said, please?
Yeah, we're going to let Julianne respond, and then we're going to let Ice say something, and then we're going to go back in that order and let other people speak.
So are we not able to critique when things are done in bad faith? When it's by another person of color?
Why are you assuming that they're done in bad faith?
I mean as if they are done in a myopic way, they can lead to significant harm. It can lead to a net negative of the overall leftist movement, which I don't believe that most people are.
How is this a net negative? Explain.
Right.
Yeah, please. Explain her.
Right. In terms of a leftist movement, I think from bare bones, having two white men as a forefront is always going to be a net negative. No movement has ever helped by having white people at the front. I'm going to tell you that right now.
So,
and
Julie,
that's not even because.
Why
are you talking over me?
Do you know let her respond, Z, and then Z.
So I think the only thing I've learned this week from Z, Dean, and all these people is I really hate racism is labeled as microaggressions now, because it's a really convenient way to minimize your hatred, isn't it? You know, like it's little baby racism, little whoopsie. I didn't mean that. Oh, well, okay, it happened again. All right, it's a third time. All right, a fourth time. But I didn't say the N-word. I didn't say the N-word. I didn't say I hate anybody. So it's not racism. It's racism light. It's sugar-free racism. It's the whole grain bread of racism. Like, what an insanely convenient way to minimize the hurt you are causing another human being, because you know who it's not micro to? The minorities that have to hear it. The minorities that have to see you saying this stuff behind their backs. It's disgusting. Call racism racism. You know, if you blurt out a curse word, that's a microaggression. Like, you know, fuck you, Dean. That's a microaggression.
So when I read something like this, it kind of feeds into the ultimate point that I'm making. And you know what's really frustrating about this conversation? I know that people like you have no way of understanding that sometimes people have conversations because these are real things to them, right? So the thing I'm talking about in this video this person commented on is that everyone's in this for entertainment, right? But the point that I'm kind of making is that, you know, as especially a Black transgender woman, whether I am engaged in this conversation for entertainment or not, I'm not, but let's say I am, whether I am or not, what's happening in this country is going to more rapidly impact me than it is most of the people that end up being the thought leaders in at least the TikTok space on here, right? Like, and that's what's frustrating, because you have these people who are ultimately invested in establishing a career for themselves, getting money for themselves, right? And yes, they are doing stuff that I would consider to be very productive and helpful. You know, they are having conversations that I think we need to have. But then whenever we end up in situations where someone expresses a microaggression, right? And that microaggression seems to suggest that maybe these people who are engaging in it aren't really people to be trusted because it conflicts with their politics, right? So like, I'll break this down for a lot of you guys who really, I guess, don't get this, because I think maybe this is going to sound condescending and there's no way for me to say this, but I think sometimes you guys just lack a basic understanding of certain things. And I'm just going to lay this out for you so you get why I have the reaction I have. The Holocaust, right? And a lot of the things that Hitler did was directly inspired by American racism, specifically anti-Blackness, right? That has now been used to justify the existence of Israel. What is it that has allowed so many people to look at Palestinians and express indifference to their death? A long history of dehumanization that makes it so that people don't register the humanity of Palestinians. They are actively propagandized into feeling as if they are less than human. In a similar way, all of these white people involved in the Unfuck America tour have been propagandized with the same American racism that inspired Hitler, that inspired the creation of Israel, that inspired the dehumanization. You know what I mean? All of these things are connected. So as a Black person who is a leftist who comes into these conversations, right, there are particular people where, you know, like sometimes I would assume that someone who's a leftist, right, would be someone who is not engaged in anti-Blackness, because you would have that base of understanding, right? You would have that base of understanding that all of these things are part of the same thing that is killing this world, right? So when you do it, it calls into question, how invested in this are you really? And as it turns out, when we have these conversations, it becomes pretty clear that at the end of the day, this is all a weird thing of optics, right? It's not really about the actual politics that we're talking about, right? It's this weird thing people will do where they will talk about Black people. They will become so intimately familiar with the good arguments that can be made, in favor of, anti racism, right? But then they still engage in these things, and then you recognize it's this completely separate thing, that their stated politics aren't really what they believe necessarily, right? And that's shocking and it's upsetting, right? And the thing with microaggressions, and I wish you guys understood this, right? A lot of people don't get that the reason why people make a big deal about microaggressions is because they are micro, right? Microaggression is how you ultimately get to the point where someone is completely dehumanized, and suddenly you're able to completely dismiss their humanity, their needs, their value, right? So when you turn a blind eye to the smallest form of transgression, right, it kind of makes it so that bit by bit by bit by bit by bit by bit by bit, it gets chipped away at, and ultimately you don't even recognize it. And you know what's funny about this, actually contextually within this conversation? Oddly enough, we've been having conversations about microaggressions in these spaces for a very long time. And at every single step, it's never been the right time to talk about it. And I'm talking about this as someone who's been involved in these conversations, from Bush to Occupy, to, no on Prop 8, all this stuff, right? Like every single step of the way, we've had conversations about this shit where people do, like, perfect example, I'll go back to Prop 8, right? Prop 8 was one of the first times I actually went on the street and fought for rights, right? When I did that, when ultimately things didn't go the way that they want, people wanted it to go, one of the first things people did was blame Black people. They said Black people are just, by statistics, more racist, not more racist, more homophobic. And that's why things went the way they went, ignoring the reality, the same reality that's being ignored right now, that hate in this country is much deeper than people seem to register. Right? Now we're where we are now, it's been quite some time since Prop 8, right? Gay marriage has been legalized and is now potentially not being legalized, right? And we're still having these conversations, right? But we've never been closer to the complete removal of civil rights for Black people. Do you understand that that's the result of you guys dismissing every single concern that Black people have had, and then ultimately some people on the left ultimately getting so tired of that criticism, so exhausted by that criticism, that some of them decided to jump ship and go right? I want for people to understand that the reason we talk about this stuff is because these little things become big things. And when you come in here and you say, from people who were microaggressed to the people who who want Starbucks, but in different cups, everyone here is just for show. You get that dismissing the microaggression is how we get here, right? And whenever I sit here as a person who has experienced and continues to experience oppression, and I register that the slow dehumanization of the things that I embody is how we get to where we're getting, right? And then people like you are saying something that is supposed to suggest that you're actually more involved, but you still don't seem to want to be aware of what I see as a person who goes through this shit as a very central part of understanding the shit that's going on right now. It just draws attention to the fact that we're not having the same conversation. And I just want for some people to recognize that that is what Black people are registering. That is actually why. See, this is what happens. When you guys don't listen to these concerns, you actually don't get how we get where we are, right? The reason why there were Black people who said, you know what, I'm fucking going to Starbucks, is because there were people who said, you know what, I have put aside my shit forever. I have allowed these people to be anti-Black in the name of leftist progression long enough. And ironically, if you listened and responded to the concerns, people would get in line the way you would like for them to right now. Anyway, that's what. You know, I was just watching a video by a Black woman who's talking about some of the stuff that I'm not going to get into by name because I don't think I can on here. But one point that she made was it is so interesting, the difference in the way that people interact with white people and Black people in this conversation, because the way people have been talking about white folks who are MAGA and also white leftists in general, there's this desire to baby them. There's this desire to make it so that they never really feel like anyone's being too harsh, right? Like, we have to reach across the table with MAGA. We have to be understanding of, white leftists who make mistakes because we're supposed to sort of accept whatever they're doing as part of the greater good that we should all be working towards, right? But when it comes to Black folks, y'all are so unforgiving. Y'all expect for Black folks to not just remain perfect, but to actually tolerate and swallow racism. That's the interesting thing about this, right? Because let's say someone was being microaggressive, which they were. We're not going to get into all the how and why, but let's just say that, right? Wouldn't it be a good idea for you to know that if you're someone who doesn't want to be doing that, right? Like, to me, that's the piece that doesn't really make sense. If you're committing a microaggression and you genuinely care about shifting that, why is it a bad thing for someone to call it out and draw it to your attention? Seriously, why? Right? Why? And I think that this kind of is reflective of like a lot of the other thoughts I've had around this. A lot of these conversations that we've been having since Trump has gotten elected, I've already started to feel this way, but they've really, successfully done it at this point. I don't feel intimidated by white people. I don't buy into the premise of white supremacy because really it's an inferiority complex. It's an inferiority complex because so many white folks require like such a sharp degree of babying and hand-holding and soft speaking and butt patting, right? Like, y'all require so much of that. And it's funny, like someone's getting on here talking about they have Black fatigue, and the Black fatigue is listening to Black people talk about their experience with racism, right? Like, so you're fatigued, but Black people can't be tired of experiencing a systemic form of oppression. But you're tired, like, there's this way where white supremacy is really about maintaining white delicacy and white sensibilities, right? It's really not about anything more than that. And that's really loud in this conversation because some of you were able to sort of see the bad in Kamala Harris, right? You were able to see that her politics were bad when some of us were saying, hey, we disagree with some of her policies, but she's not Donald Trump, and maybe that's a meaningful difference, right? You weren't willing to do that for Kamala. You are willing to do that in the context of some white person who is, I guess, throwing an event on college campuses and collecting money for voter registration. Like, that is a worthwhile thing that's worth dismissing the anti-blackness, right? Meanwhile, why are we talking about this? Why was this a point of conversation? Because Black women's voices were being removed from college campuses, because Black education is being removed from college campuses, and because our perspectives aren't going to be on college campuses in the way that they once were, right? Black folks have always lived through very tangibly, functionally different circumstances, but white folks get to be incredibly sensitive, and that is supposed to always outweigh whatever tangible pain a Black person has gone through. It's funny, you know? I do appreciate a lot of these conversations because it allows me to feel really liberated away from like any little part of me that was kind of, you know, still entertaining certain premises about, you know, people not really being bigoted, right? Like, I think for the white leftist folks, like, there are going to be people who are going to require a lot more time. And I don't got time. I don't got patience. At this point, right? It's not even about, I need you to agree with me. I need you to love me. I need you to, it's not about that. It's about, at this current point in the timeline, things are starting to get scary. And I'm starting to feel like you're one of the people who's going to say, oh, she's over here. This is her location. I don't feel safe around y'all. Because what you demonstrate in so many of these conversations is how eager you are to throw Black women under the bus. And it's crazy because while you do that, you demand that we tolerate bigotry to swallow it for the common good. And you are so used to not caring about Black folks that you don't even see how terrible that is. You don't see it. And that's why it's not, y'all have your little thing over there, I'm good over here.
Hello friends. So like before I moved on to like any other content, I did want to take a second and like sit and debrief with you guys about the UNF America tour that I was just on. I know I posted a statement on my story, but I also did want to make a video kind of like just chatting with you guys about it. I know a lot of people have talked about this already. I just wanted to say a couple of things. Without being super messy, I just wanted to provide some receipts because as someone who was one of the first Black creators in this tour to start putting things together and working behind the scenes to make sure everyone knew what was going on and that something was amiss, I just want to provide my perspective. But I did first want to say some like personal disclaimers. The first thing I want to say is I am so sorry that I attached myself to this tour even for a week without doing my homework about the organizers of this tour and being far too trusting. I didn't do my homework. That's my fault. And I'm going to share some of the things that I have found about the organizers since this has all happened. Because at the end of the day, I don't think any creator should be working with these specific political organizers because I don't think their best interests will be held at the forefront. I also want to apologize for as long as it took me to get to the bottom of what exactly was going on with Z, what she said, who she said it to, what was actually happening to remedy the situation, etc., etc. I should have done my due diligence instead of trusting a specific creator that said things were being taken care of. That's on me. I was not paying attention to that group chat the way I should have been. I am aware that two creators, Erica and Mermaid, both told Z, get off this panel, do not talk to these women like this. This is unacceptable, you need to change your tone. A lot of us were popping in there trying to figure out what in the world was going on, and the group chat was shut down. And the group chat was shut down by the admins, Brandon and Z. But ultimately, that's not an excuse I should have gotten to the bottom of it. I should have recognized that it was more serious than what was being said. And I should have made sure that certain conversations had happened and not just trusted that they had. And I'll touch more on that in a second. The second thing I want to say is I did not personally make any money going on this tour whatsoever. I was not paid. I volunteered my time. Yes, my flight and hotels were comped, but I did not get paid anything. I was not compensated, and I did not fundraise through their crowdfunding link either. The only people who were paid to be on the tour were Dean and Parker, and the only reason that we were even privy to the information of Dean and Parker being paid and how much they were being paid was because one of the organizers, Brandon, was speaking poorly about Dean to one of the creators when we all arrived in Texas. So yes, glad we got that information, but the means in which we got that information just reflect even poorer on the organizers and how unprofessionally this entire thing was handled. So now that we've spent time like getting to the bottom of things and getting to the truth of the matter and doing our homework on these people, I want to share with you guys things that we have learned and things that we have found the truth out about that have shook all of us to our core, and it goes so much deeper than what happened on the live stream with Z. As unacceptable as that was, there are also things that happen that compound on top of that that just make the situation even worse. And I don't think I need to tell you guys, but please do not send any of these people hate. I'm doing this for educational purposes. I don't want to see any other creators mixed up in any organizations that these people might be running, because they will not be looking out for your best interest as a creator, and I can guarantee that. And I don't want to see that happen to anyone else. So I made like a little bit of like a PowerPoint slide so that I could stay on track and make sure everything I'm saying is correct. And I do also recommend that if you have not seen Santana's live stream from last night, absolutely watch that. Everything he and Erica said is 100% factual. So this tour was pulled together in about 4 weeks' time. And we were under the impression that this organization had been running and operating for a very, very long time. In fact, we were explicitly assured that this organization had been running for a very long time, and they knew what they were doing, and they were well organized. Realistically, we know now the infrastructure within UNF America is non-existent. It does not exist. Like most of the creators on the trip, we had not had any experience with Brandon or Z. We were not familiar with them. We had no idea who they were. I was invited by one of my mutuals. I hadn't met Z. I didn't know anything about these people. And I'll put all these slides on my story too, in case anyone doesn't want to watch this long video. But many concerns were brought up before, during, and after the trip. The Black creators even went directly to Jones, who had kind of like organically placed himself as like the spokesperson for the Black creators, even though he was never elected to do that. We never asked him to do that. We were told to put our feelings on ice. We were told that it was a legal matter, that the board was involved, that PR was involved, that there were so many things moving at once, and the worst thing that Z could do was have accountability, make a statement. And we were assured that he had spoken to the panel of women whom were offended by Z's rhetoric, and things had been sorted out. And that was not true. You can pause to read. I just wanted to like give a couple different examples from like our group chat. These aren't in any particular order, of just like us saying, hey, like we're having some issues, we're having some concerns, like something needs to happen. You can pause to read. We were basically told on multiple fronts, multiple times by Jones to stand down, don't say anything, and don't give it any more attention than it already is getting. I know if someone commented or DM'd asking me about the situation specifically surrounding Z, I was upfront and honest, like, this is what happened, this is what she did. We're under the impression that everything's working out, it's all good, it's being worked out. All the while, it was not being worked out. And as I'm looking at this, I did not send it through spell check before I saved it. My apologies. So everyone can better understand what the problems are, what exactly happened. I'm just going to do a bullet point list of 3 of the main figures who have caused this to go awry. What happened, what we found out, and why we are not ever going to work with them again. Z used microaggressions towards Black women on a panel to defend a political PAC that she created, and it was unacceptable. We found out yesterday that the $100,000 that was raised is gone. It's been spent on a 72-hour tour at Texas A&M. And for us, that doesn't add up. So Santana has been leading the charge in ensuring that we get receipts on what this money was spent on. And since Z has asked Santana to cease communication because she does not want to talk to him about this, which is very strange to me. And something else I found out while doing my homework into Z is that she has been sued before for misappropriating campaign funds, which makes this whole situation even slimier. After the trip, things started heating up because we realized that we had been lied to by certain figures like Mr. Jones and Z and Brandon, and we were immediately asked to sign an NDA. And this is a ChatGPT summary of said NDA. It's one of the most ridiculous NDAs I have ever read in my whole life. I cannot believe this was ever sent out. And another huge misstep that occurred was that before coming on this trip, we were assured that we would have armed security with us on campus. We would have our own booth. We would have our own area. We would be safe. And up until the hour before we got into the vans to leave for campus, we were expecting to have armed security. And it was announced to us at the very last moment that we would not have any kind of security, but we're still going. Good luck, have fun. We brought our concerns to the organizers. We brought our concerns to Jones. It was brushed off. It was called an industry norm. For us, it was like the principle of it. If we were guaranteed something that has to do with our safety, we would expect to have that guarantee met. I just wanted to share this. This was my text that I sent to the group chat of like the Black creators when we found out like, hey, like you're not going to get any security anymore. And I was like, hey, I can look past a lot of like chaos, disorganization, not feeding us properly, etc., etc. But I don't want to put my name and my credibility behind an organization that doesn't even care about my safety. When concerns like about our safety were being brushed off, that's when we started to realize that, hey, Mr. Jones might not be looking out for our best interests. Just reiterating again, like kind of what happened on campus. We were there all day long. We kind of all started to feel like we were kind of just there for the help, like as the help to promote Dean and Parker. And let me be so explicitly clear, that is not Dean and Parker's fault. Dean and Parker were immensely kind and immensely gracious. Quite literally, everyone was misled about what exactly we would be on campus doing, and it was very clear in the hours going up to campus that there was no plan, there was no organization. I personally question if private security was ever even hired. There's just a lot of questions I have. But there was a point in the event where another creator, TC, who I absolutely love and adore, a lot of the people on this trip are genuinely just like wonderful people, good people down to the core, great intentions. And that's why I specifically want to talk about this, because it's really unfortunate that everyone's integrity and credibility got compromised because not only did we not do our homework, but because we were manipulated, deceived, lied to. But TC and I spent quite some time out in the sun with signs and trying to corral students to go debate Dean and Parker. And after a couple hours, TC and I kind of looked at each other and we were like, what are we doing? Collectively, TC and I have almost 5 million wonderful people who follow us. We can be doing so much more with our platforms, with our time, than trying to get college students to go watch Dean and Parker debate. And that is not to be offensive to Dean and Parker in any way. So that was like the gist of the issues that were happening as far as like Z's leadership. Then one of the other organizers who was kind of like Z's right-hand person was Brandon Russell. And Brandon Russell didn't have a great experience with him, was not really a kind person, I would say. I mean, one of my first impressions was of him trash talking Dean to another creator, explaining how much he got paid, how difficult he was to work with, etc., etc., just massively unprofessional. You don't do that. As an organizer, you don't do that, period. Furthermore, and I've found this out and confirmed this since being off of the trip, Brandon is a Zionist. Brandon is a Zionist. It is my opinion that in 2025, a Zionist cannot be at the forefront of any kind of a progressive political movement in the United States. I understand the trope that the left demands perfection from one another to its own detriment, and I do understand that, but I personally will not work. I will not be associated with, I will not work for, I will not stand behind Zionists. I think it says a lot about someone's humanity, their intentions, their maturity, and their outlook on the world. And that's the kind of ideology that they identify with. Now, I'm going to say allegedly here because I don't trust this person and I don't trust that they wouldn't try to legally come after me. But these are some like snippets from our group chat, our creator group chat from last night, because we found out some really insane information about an incident that occurred on the trip. So allegedly, and I wouldn't be saying this unless I had very good evidence, the night that we arrived in Texas, after dinner, when we got back to our hotel room, the day before we're going to campus to go debate Charlie Kirk, were sitting in the lobby chatting about the next day, and some of Charlie Kirk's Turning Point employees walk in. We thought they just found out where we were and they showed up unannounced just to cause chaos. We weren't with it. We saw them and we just retreated up to our hotel rooms. We weren't going to deal with it. But last night, we discovered that these Turning Point employees were invited to our hotel. Our location was given to them. They were invited to our hotel by Brandon, allegedly, so that some viral, confrontational, messy content could be filmed between the UNF America Tour members and Turning Point USA employees. We had no idea that that was happening. We had no idea that that was being set up. We didn't consent to that, and we never would have agreed to it. Like, we're not a social experiment. You're putting us in danger. And of course, while those employees were there, they all got a really good look at all of our faces. And we wonder why the Charlie Kirk employees, the day of, when we lined up to go debate Charlie Kirk, would not let us debate him. They knew our faces. They knew who we were. And just to put us all in a situation where we thought that we were genuinely unsafe, that we could have been genuinely unsafe, is unacceptable, especially for an organizer. Again, we are not a social experiment. We were there to volunteer our time and talk to college students. Our intentions were pure, and it's really unfortunate that the organizers were not. And pause to read. I'll put these all up on my story so you guys can read them too. But Mr. Jones, basically, this whole situation was so much more confusing than it needed to be, specifically because of Mr. Jones, unfortunately. And I hate to say that, I have respected Mr. Jones for a very long time. I had no reason to believe that Mr. Jones would not have all of the Black creators' best intentions at heart. But he placed himself as the spokesperson for all of us and spoke for us, and basically told Z that the only way that we were okay with the entire situation, top to bottom, being remedied was if Z were to step away as the face of the UNF America Tour, and Jones's now ex-partner would become the face of the tour, and Jones would step in and do operations. That's just not true. None of us agreed to that. Why would we agree to that after we have had multiple incidences of Mr. Jones not taking our concerns seriously and brushing us off? Him being an advocate for us and being the spokesperson for us didn't make any sense because he wasn't listening to us. So many things were happening behind the scenes. There's so many, I can't even address all of the things that we were lied to about. There were so many lies. There was just so much manipulation. All our concerns were being throttled because, in my opinion, Jones wanted to ensure that the UNF America Tour was not damaged because he wanted this to be his thing that he drove off into the sunset. So, very long story short, we were hearing different stories from Mr. Jones, and he was telling to Z, and he was telling to some of the other women on that panel who had initially been offended. We were getting so many different stories. And again, I encourage you to go watch Santana's live stream that's probably uploaded to YouTube at this point, because he breaks down so many more of the specific lies that were told that caused us to be so confused and be unsure of where things even stood. Ultimately, from the jump, the tour was doomed to fail. Not only was it built on unsteady ground, there were players who did not have their peers' intentions in the forefront and were only thinking about themselves, which ultimately harmed everyone, and it's just not acceptable. And while, of course, I'm fully separated from this tour completely, and I know I was only attached to it for a week, but still, I'm loudly distancing myself, separating myself from them. I do want to say the movement's here. The movement's we the people. The movement is not dead, but this movement cannot be ran by the figures whom I just mentioned. Political movements cannot be ran at this moment, or any moment in my opinion, by the three figures whom I just mentioned. But what happened needs to happen more. Going to the college campuses, talking to the students. It's incredibly important work, and I know that all of us are going to continue the work, and especially locally in our own communities. But of course, we right now really want to focus on the loose ends of this situation, finding out where that $100,000 went is going to be the forefront of our focus surrounding this. As truly, it was so wonderful being able to meet some of my favorite mutuals, being able to meet some of you guys out on campus, being able to talk to you guys. Amazing interactions, but the circumstances should have been better. And there was just one last thing I do want to clarify before I wrap this up. The creators on this trip, and I can only speak for the creators on this trip who I was spending time with, who I've been talking to nonstop, we were not mad at Peyton for making videos about whatever he wants to make videos about. We were simply upset with the misinformation and the intention. We were just trying to get to the bottom of so many lies this past week that we did not want to add any information that was not factual that could confuse the situation more. None of the Black women who went on this tour, who went on this trip, have spoken to Peyton before, during, or after the trip. To my understanding, there was a Black creator who was not a part of the tour, who was not a part of the trip, who reached out to him wanting him to speak on the situation, but the members of the group did not reach out to Peyton to ask him to speak for us at any point. We were really working internally, trying to get to the bottom of a lot of different things at once. In Peyton's video, it was alluded to that he had spoken with some of the Black content creators who had come on this trip, and he had proof that the Black creators had to pay their own way and the white creators did not have to. If I'm incorrect on that sentiment, correct me, but I believe that's what was being alluded to. And that's just a lie on its face. That didn't happen. A lot did happen, but that is just factually incorrect. The Black creators did not pay for their flights and their hotels while the white creators were paid for it. That just didn't happen. And ultimately it was just causing more confusion and muddying what the truth of the situation was. I am aware that one of the creators on the trip who was aware of things that were going on did reach out to Peyton and was like, hey, can you hang on for a second? Like, we have a lot happening behind the scenes. But I guess Peyton wanted to keep making content about it, which that's his choice. And Dean, who knew well what was going on behind the scenes, confronted Peyton, and not even on live before that, but he texted him and asked him, hey, who are the creators who are having to pay their own way? I don't like that. I want to fix it. Let me reimburse them. Who are they? And Peyton refused to tell him because he assumed that Dean was going to pay for the Black creators' silence. I guess we were like confused by the intention because, like, yes, speak out against UNF America, absolutely. But it is so important that the things that we're talking about are facts. But all in all, none of us spoke to Peyton. None of us asked him to speak for us. He can speak about absolutely whatever he wants, whenever he wants on his page. That's just why there was some confusion. And I think some creators were more offended than others about why we were being spoken for. He wasn't willing to go back and like correct things, so everything was factual. Again, his own platform, he can do whatever he wants with it. He can talk about whatever he wants. All we were asking for is that things stay as fact-based and as truthful as possible, because there has just been so many lies that we have had to navigate through internally so that we could bring the truth to you guys. And so having things told that aren't fully honest on the outside just makes it even messier. But no hate to Peyton, he can post about whatever he wants. I just wanted to clear up. That's why some of the creators were like, can you like stop for a second? It's not that our intention was to never talk about it. We just wanted to make sure we got to the bottom of what was going on so that we could tell you guys the full truth with as much transparency as possible. It was always going to happen. We didn't feel like pressured into doing it. We just wanted to make sure that we were coming forth with accuracy. So I'm just going to end it with that. I again want to apologize for even being associated with this tour. I'm apologizing for not doing my homework. I'm apologizing for not personally reaching out to some of the women on that panel. And one thing that I have learned is that the live stream and the content creation world is sometimes very, very different. There are a lot of people on there who I've never heard of, who are new faces to me, but not an excuse. Should have done my due diligence to make sure everything I was being told was the truth. And this was absolutely a learning experience, to say the least. I will continue to stay transparent about the situation. If you have any like questions or anything, comments, whatever, feel free to drop them below. I will answer whatever questions you guys have. Yeah, there's still like more coming out, but I think we've gotten a fairly good grasp on what has happened. And I know I'll probably get comments being like, oh, Charlie Kirk won. This is exactly what Charlie Kirk wanted. You guys couldn't even hold it together for one tour. And that's fine. Like, that's completely fine. I have never worried a day in my life about the opinions of Charlie Kirk. And I am very, very confident in we the people. I'm very, very confident in the people who have work so hard behind the scenes to try to bring light to this entire situation. So with that, please don't send hate to anyone. We are absolutely capable of holding ourselves accountable. And I can only speak for myself, but I'm going to continue to just listen to my travel anxiety from now on, and I'll stick to my local protests, at least for a little bit. Again, so sorry that this was a thing, but hopefully I've shed a little bit of light on the things that have gone on in the background. I encourage you guys to go watch Santana's live, because he really goes into depth about like the depravity of the lies that were told to us, specifically by Mr. Jones, and how that was just an ultimate betrayal that we did not see coming. So that's that. If you have any questions, leave them below. But we'll be back to our regular scheduled programming tomorrow.
The Unfuck America tour was doomed to fail from the very beginning, and I'm going to tell you exactly why. But first, let me say the fact that people are villainizing Peyton for standing up and speaking out and not holding Z accountable boggles my fucking mind. What do you mean? This man saw black women on a live, was watching it, saw Z come in and have some microaggressions toward those women. He confirms with his POC friend, bro, you seeing what I'm seeing? Yeah, bro, I'm seeing what you're seeing. He says something on his video, and y'all want to pay more attention to him saying something than her saying what she said? She called them crazy and loud. That's the same dangerous language as calling someone ghetto and aggressive. It's the exact same fucking thing, especially in this platform with this climate. You can't call black women crazy and loud because that belittles them, period. It's so fucking crazy to me. And I think that this entire tour failed because the 92% weren't consulted or handling or involved at the very beginning. I don't know what Z's background is in organization, but I work in operations and I know what it's like to put stuff together and to have projects and events and all that. And the way that I've been hearing and the videos that I've seen, this shit was not organized at all. What do you mean you went to a college campus and you didn't have any paperwork or you didn't have a permit? How the fuck do you think that was going to happen? Especially at Texas A&M, especially in Texas, period. You thought that you were going to go on their campus and not have any paperwork? That whole thing should have been lit the fuck up. Y'all are a bunch of college age or middle 20s, early 20s people. Y'all could have had that shit loud and proud, and y'all could have blasted Charlie Kirk out. Y'all could have had food, $100,000. Y'all could have had food. Y'all could have had music. Y'all could have had something going out there. If she was organizing stuff like this, she could have got with other organizations to help sponsor, to help provide the food or for something like that, to help provide music, to help provide a DJ. But you mean to tell me that we're going to have an old-fashioned debate and we're going to have two people sitting up here talking and it's in Texas heat? And what fucking world was that going to be okay? And what fucking world was that going to work? And then she gets on here and she posts a video like, oh, it was amazing and I saw some minds change. Sure, maybe, cool, that might have happened. But the entire thing has been overshadowed by the fact that you're freaking a racist and that you said some crazy things and that Peyton stood up for it and now Peyton's the bad guy. What? What are you talking about? I don't know what's going to happen with this Unfuck America tour, and I don't really care. What I will say is that when we do stuff like this, we need to have the correct sort of focus. We need to remember the main goal and not get distracted by this petty ass shit. People who are racist need to be shut down immediately. Fucking immediately. There is no ifs, and buts, anything about it. Shut them down and move on and keep the focus on the goal of the tour. The goal of the tour was to debunk all of Charlie Kirk's fallacies and his weird ass conservative arguments. It's to change the minds of the college age kids, because we saw way too many red pilled college age kids in this past election. That's the goal. But this entire goal has been completely overshadowed by some freaking weird ass drama from this weird ass white woman. Okay, and y'all villainizing the wrong person. Maintain focus. And I think that's the reason why things like this fail, because black women specifically, we have everything to lose. Our children have everything to lose. Our men have everything to lose when it comes to movements like this. So that's why we have a different sort of passion. A different sort of passion and buy-in and vested interest in things like this. Because those two men might not lose anything unless it gets Hitlerized and they just take over everything. But if things keep going the way they're going, black people, we have everything to lose. That changes the passion put behind these sorts of movements. And that's my 2 cents. Say what you want, I don't care.
Someone from the Unfuck America tour just released all the text messages and kind of gave us a insight on how everyone lied. Like, they all lied. All the videos that you see in the past couple days, the live streams, the reason why, like, everything felt so off, like, it was so weird how they were going around everything and doing everything. It made no sense. They were all lying. And so one of the content creators, CFH Unfiltered, who is like Team Z, he just released a Substack showing all the messages and how all the creators that are now speaking out, they never had an issue in the first place. It was always a lie. That's why they never said anything. They never had an issue with Z. They were going to completely just continue everything like nothing happened. That was the plan. And then once things started to get out of control, then after the tour, they, you know, did a 180 practically and kind of blindsided Z just because of the optics. It was never about any like racial issues. It was never about practically anything other than just they wanted to stop getting backlash. So they ended up all coming together and just lying and just being like, yeah, we wanted to handle this internally. But yeah, everything was a lie. All the content creators that have made videos in the last 2 days, they were all lying to just cover themselves. They genuinely had no care about the anti-blackness in the Z live stream, like any of it. Like, that's crazy. Crazy. That's why they were blocking comments. That's why they were being so sketchy. So, honestly, unfollow them all, because now you know their true character.
Andra to the front, they leaked your group chat. They got the messages. So that like video you made where you were like, the reason I didn't speak out against racism on the Unfuck America tour was because I didn't know what was happening. I wasn't even there. I didn't see any of it. You were in that group chat telling them to basically shut the fuck. You were in that group chat being like, they were just so angry. Like, why were they so angry? It's like, don't even talk to them. Don't even listen to them because you see how violent and angry they are. Andra, they leaked you. That is so fucking embarrassing. And it's like, I get times are tough and people are broke, but to come on TikTok and try to become like a political activist, to try to be an activist for money, Andra, oh my god, they leaked your group chat. Why were y'all in the group chat like that? Like a bunch of money hungry, like, oh my god. When I heard that like Unfuck America group chat was leaked, I'm thinking, oh, they're gonna be talking about stealing money and like some crazy shit. No, they was just in there being disgusting. You got the leader of the Unfuck America tour basically calling people slurs. You got her basically being like, fuck all the people that I'm doing this for. I really don't give a fuck, they're too woke. Z, they leaked the group chat. Oh my god, Z, why did you say that? Like, y'all are talking about, oh, you guys are gonna tear down a woman who has been doing that, who has made her life's career to be an activist, and you're gonna tear her down? She don't need to be an activist. I saw her group chat. The group chat was leaked. After the group chat was leaked, I don't think any of them need to be activists.
Remember when I said this, right? All the Jubilee leftists, get rid of them. Problem ain't really the people, to be honest with you. The problem is y'all want activism to be a fucking career field, and it's not. Activism, mutual aid, community service, civic engagement, whatever you want to call it. Most of these things are supposed to be done out of the charity and the kindness of your heart. You're not supposed to get paid for this shit. You're not supposed to be visible, famous from this shit. You're not supposed to be centering this as your main content pillar. The Unfuck America tour or any other initiative that's like that will always rub me the wrong way because you're doing it for the wrong reason. Y'all don't want to do it out of the goodness of your heart. You don't want to make any actual change. You're doing it because you want to be famous. You're doing it because it's easy, repeatable content. You're doing it because of the climate that we're in. You're doing it because you want to get paid from this shit. Like, what the fuck? Any initiative that has that as its main motive is bound to fail. And another thing, it was unserious from the start. What kind of fucking acronym is this, y'all? UFAT. Nobody said, damn, this shit looks crazy to me. What? It's like, it's bad branding. Then y'all want to attach it to Charlie Kirk? Are we using our minds?
You let 3 white people headline a tour about racism, and then you're surprised when they act up? Both of the males come from a conservative Christian household, talk about it very openly, and one of them has openly been called out for saying the N-word, and the other woman just got called out recently for being extremely microaggressive towards black women. These are people where it is ingrained in them. They've said countless times that they grew up in these spaces. These are the people that they've grown around. You really think within the past 5 years, that's how long it takes to unlearn racism? You mean to tell me within 5 years, everything that they've ever learned in their entire life is just dissipated? Am I supposed to give them a cookie for unlearning racism? That's what you're supposed to do. I shouldn't give you an applause because you left your conservative household. Good for you. That's what normal people do. That's what good people with a heart and a brain do. Propping up and praising these white people for leaving these spaces and becoming a better person when the better person is just a normal person is exactly how you should act. I had to learn that when I was 8 years old, getting followed around the grocery store by the security guard, and I didn't know what was going on. BIPOC people have to learn this at a very early age, and I refuse to prop up a white man for learning it at the age of fucking 22. Fuck you.
Let this Unfuck America tour situation be a reminder to y'all that the white man is not gonna save us. It's not happening. Especially the ones, maybe, who claim to be down for us, but really only use us when it's convenient for them. And the moment it stops being convenient, they kick us to the curb. Because they don't really care. They never did, they never will. I'm not talking about Peyton, by the way. Peyton, the homie, shout out to Peyton. I'm talking about the rest of them fraudulent motherfuckers. okay, who seem more upset with somebody calling out their lead organizer's racist behavior than they do with said lead organizer's racist behavior. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't get it. Maybe you do. Please help me understand, because I'm lost. I don't get it. They frauds. They phonies. They don't really care about doing nothing important. They just, it's all about clout. It's all about building their own personal brand and, you know, acting like they the good ones, you know? They the good ones. They the ones that understand. They down for the cause. No, they're not. No, they're not. They just like the rest of them. They just a little bit better at lying, but not even that good at it.
In light of recent controversies surrounding Dean, I would like to bring to light another situation that many people might not know about. Now, this happened a while ago in another content creators live where many indigenous creators, including myself, were present. The topic of this live, Dean claiming indigeneity. Now, many indigenous creators, including myself, were very piqued at this newfound information that he had stated, which then led all of us to, you know, request, ask, you know, who are his people, who claims him, who he has ties to, who he has connections to. Now, to someone who isn't familiar with this type of procedure and process, this is a fairly common practice between indigenous people, especially when we're trying to not only get to know one another or to see if we are somehow related or have familial ties. At the point where I had gotten involved is to, you know, request up and ask, you know, who his people are. And he simply would not answer. He would refuse to give the answer and essentially dodge any question regarding so. We eventually had gotten out of him that he was associated and had ties to a super secret ancient tribe in Utah. Upon other indigenous creators, including myself, asking more for specifics, he had claimed and stated that it was to protect the tribe because it was super small, super remote, and we could promote harm to that tribe. Basically inferring that indigenous people could cause harm to other indigenous people just by simply asking who your people are. At this point, I took it upon myself to, you know, ask the other indigenous creators in the live, you know, who their people were, who claims them, what, and in some instances, which bands and which families. And we all had an easy time doing so. We all did it very fluidly. I spoke in my language. I introduced myself to the other creators, including Dean. At this point, when we had asked Dean, it was crickets, radio silence from him. Shortly thereafter, after being questioned by other indigenous creators, he had dropped from the panel. It's unnecessary to make these statements and claims without any evidence to back them. And the only way you could give people answers is if they're only through DMs. A person with that much influence, following, and stature across multiple platforms on the internet making baseless claims like that really needs to reel in on how they do things and how they move. If someone is going to be an advocate and an uplifter of Black, Indigenous, and other communities of color, and then getting into these situations and then ignoring the same communities that it affects, what does that mean for all the other things that you try to advocate for? What does that mean for all the indigenous creators that were dismissed and ignored, asking valid questions about your identity and how you move between these debate spaces and public forums and interviews, talking about social justice and trying to protect these very marginalized and vulnerable communities, but then doing this? There's a very big issue going on currently, not only in academia debate, but in public spaces of people claiming indigenous ancestry, indigenous ties, and indigenous roots, when that only harms the community that they're trying to profit off of. In this time where indigenous people are literally fighting to be not invisible on their own lands, people have taken the liberty of adopting identities that don't belong to them. They have no problem getting the social clout of being indigenous, but none of the historical trauma, the ancestral trauma, the familial trauma that it comes with bearing being indigenous.
I haven't publicly spoken about this in a very long time for a very specific reason, and I'll reiterate that to you guys right now. It's because I am uncomfortable sharing like that private, like very specific private information about like my ancestry or like my relations to like to what was described. However, like a year or 2 years ago, I didn't hold that same standard, and I would publicly speak about this. But inevitably, I did like have a conversation with Wagon Burner on a live, and he requested like more specific details, such as like what specific members of my family, what their tribal relations were, like where specifically, what tribe, etc. And I didn't feel comfortable sharing that information because like I guess I hold it close to my heart, and it's like very private. And then B, just for like general like practical and safety concerns that come along with running a platform and like bad actors with bad intentions publicly. And like, I mean, following that conversation with Wagon Burner, I understood those concerns, so I just straight up stopped talking about it publicly because I get it. If I'm not going to like give out that private information publicly, then I probably shouldn't talk about that information online either. So that's why I haven't talked about it for a really long time. But like the specific questions that he was asking that I didn't answer was like, what specific members of my family and what specific tribe, and that is just still information that I'm not willing to share publicly. However, you know, like I have had private conversations with like community members that I trust about this over the course of the last 2 years, like sharing that information, but it's just something that I don't want to share publicly.
Okay, I just wanted to ask about that from like your perspective because it's like, you know, that is kind of concerning, especially like I didn't know like if you were indigenous or not, like, and you know, there have been a lot of YT people that would just claim like indigenous heritage without being indigenous at all. So I just wanted to make that
Yeah.
clear.
So I mean, like that's why I stopped talking about it. That's why I stopped talking about it at all publicly. That's why I stopped claiming that publicly, is because those concerns are real and those concerns are valid. And I see it all so often that you know, white people with no relation to any type of indigenous culture or heritage will make those claims, and then you know they'll be exposed for like straight up fucking lying. And I think that that plays into indigenous erasure. And like, although I'm not lying and I'm telling the truth, you know, because I kind of hold the more specific information like near and dear, and that is private information that I do not want to share publicly, I just simply stopped, you know, being like claiming that on the internet, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. Like like I said before, I just wanted to clarify, especially because of the fact that the information is going like kind of widespread right now.
Yeah, no, I agree. Like it is going widespread, and I've shared like the specific information that like Wagon Burner like had originally requested from me on that live a long time ago, with like friends in the space, friends in the community, people that like I really trust. You know, just so I could like demonstrate and honestly like prove to them that what's being said isn't necessarily true. But I think when it comes to like the dynamic of the internet, and people online, like I'm just simply not willing to share that information. And I mean, if that changes your perception of me, like trust me, I understand, and I'll just have to accept that fact.
Okay. Oh, sorry.
I haven't publicly spoken about this.
One of the most important takeaways from the Unfuck America tour, and there are several, is that white activism has its limits, especially on this app and other social media platforms. The vast majority of content creators that end up being political are only in it for performative growth. It's just free PR and branding for them to develop their own personal platforms. And honestly, it's really grifty. Like, regardless of whether you're on the left or the right doing it, it's grifty as the fuck. Half of them are only doing it because they like to feel self-important. They want to push themselves to the front. They want to center themselves in every single conversation. There are so few actually doing the work. And I really want to commend Peyton because he's one of the only people I've seen that's actually doing the work. His affordable housing project, amazing. Support, donate. That's the real shit.
Now that I'm caught up on the Unfuck America Tour drama, I would like to repeat the point that I made a couple of weeks ago about something else entirely. Content creators of color, but black content creators especially, white political content creators are liabilities. They can have good interest and be kind people or fun people or whatever, keep them at a distance. They are liabilities. Even if they don't want to be. You got to be very selective and very thorough with who you associate with and choose to do work with. You really make sure you know who they are at their core. And on a personal and more petty note, sometimes I feel not insecure, insecure might be the word, right? A little insecure about the fact that like I don't really get the content creator offerings. Like I'll get text regularly. Like I think Trending UpCon just happened and I have friends reach out to me and be like, yo, we're gonna see you at Trending UpCon. I was like, I don't get invited to that shit. Like organizations are never giving me big brand deals and never inviting me to like the cool hip conventions where all the content creators, I'm not at VidCon, I'm never at these things, right? But even though I don't be making the money like that, it feels good to be problem free. Like I cannot stress that enough.
If you consume a lot of leftist or left-leaning political content on here, there's a chance that you may be doing to your brain the same exact thing that Fox News does to its viewers' brains. And before I go any further, look, I know I came in hot with that first statement, but before you flame me in my comments, please hear me out. To be clear, I am not saying that political content on the left of any iteration is in any way morally equivalent to Fox News and other similar outlets. They are not morally the same. But if there's one thing that the complete implosion of the Unfuck America tour has exposed, other than the obvious continued perpetuation of racism on the left as well as the right, it's the fact that there are way too many people online that don't know how to tell the difference between a political content creator and a political organizer. And if you're consuming mostly content from the first category instead of the latter, you may be slowly driving yourself insane without actually contributing anything to the cause. The most important thing that you should watch for when you are consuming political content is that content creator giving you actionable next steps, or are they just activating your fear and or anger response in your head? Broadly speaking, political content as a whole can be divided into one of two categories. Either the content is advocacy focused or it is adversary focused. Advocacy-focused content will include some sort of action step or action item that you can perform after watching the video. Adversary content, on the other hand, typically does not give you any sort of action step or actionable item that you can do other than consume more of their content. Its primary goal is telling you how dumb and bad and evil and stupid the opposition is. It's very reactive in nature. When I say that there is a lot of content on the left that is doing to people's brains the same exact thing that Fox News does to their viewers' brains, I mean that there's a lot of content on the left that is activating people's fear and anger response and then doing nothing else with it. People get hooked on watching Fox News because it's activating that fear and that anger response. And the more and more that fear and that anger consumes them, the more compelled they feel to continue consuming that content. Because while what it's actually doing is inflaming that fear and anger response, what it feels like on a chemical brain level to them is it's soothing that response. In the same way that when you drink a lot of soda, you feel like you are quenching your thirst, but in actuality, because of all of the sugar and stuff that you're consuming, on a chemical level, you're actually making your body thirstier. Fox News does the same thing with people's brains. And a lot of leftist content has started to become that as well. And the problem is, eventually, you're going to have to stop watching their videos, right? Life goes on. You have to get dinner on the table or go to bed or go to work or class or whatever it is. Eventually, you're going to stop watching their videos, which means you're no longer getting that soothing feeling in the moment. And all you're left with is that fear and anger response, because they have not given you a next step that you can take outside of their content to vent off any of that. And so in the long run, if you continue consuming primarily that type of content and are never given other steps that you can take to act on this information, on this anxiety that is building inside of you, all you're doing in the long run is worsening your mental health without actively contributing toward the fight to protect our democracy. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't consume any of this content. I'm not even saying that all of the content creators that make it are bad. Frankly, I sometimes wish that that was the type of content that I make. I recognize I would be very good at it. I'm articulate, I'm informed, and most importantly, I'm fucking mean. That's a lethal combination for adversary-focused content. And adversary-focused content gets higher engagement and is much, much more profitable, which is why there are so many content creators that create that type of content. You can continue to consume some of it, but you need to make sure that you are also adding in content that is giving you action steps.
You do miss any of this right now, you can go check back and watch it on YouTube. I just want to address everything, and especially things that have come out because I've been taking time for my mental health and time off to get away from social media. I specifically just want to address the fact that I think I really fucked up, and I should be doing better. And I think that's a genuine thing for me to address. There's a lot of people that, on the internet won't, talk about those types of things and won't address that. And, there's a lot of people, especially on YouTube that, and, other social medias and stuff like that, they don't understand it the same way as we do on TikTok. But I have these views, and I think these are important to address. So like first off, right, I think that I should have pushed for public accountability from Z, who engaged in racist microaggressions against a panel of Black women prior to the tour. I knew about this prior to the tour, and also I just want to acknowledge that I literally engaged nicely with her as well. I also even smoked with her, right, along with other creators that were there at the time. As I was under the impression that she was privately taking accountability and likely going to address things publicly. I should have pushed for those things before the tour, before going on this, and I shouldn't have trusted that people, are going to address these types of things. So those are things I think it's really important for me to address and to take accountability for, and especially to have, in front of people. It was, by the way, it wasn't Dean. For people who were saying Dean wasn't there at the time in which we were smoking, but yes, I do smoke. So I do just want to take accountability and address that. I think it's important for me to address. I think it's important for me to take accountability for, and to just be I'm sorry. I fucked up. I need to hold myself and the people around me to a higher standard, and I genuinely do believe that. So I just think that's a really important thing for me to address, and for my community also to understand. So I just think that's something that's really good to address. I know a lot of people want me to come back and do debates and stuff like that, and I will get into that, and I will talk to people about the debates here in a minute. I will actually end the TikTok stream after I talk about things and address things, and address what I've been doing for the past little bit, answering a question in the chat or something, and then I'll get into the debates here on TikTok. But yeah, where have I been? I have been taking a step back, getting away from social media, trying to disconnect, not go on social media. And I've been trying to work on healthy coping mechanisms. I have got a therapy appointment now. I haven't fully gotten it took me a minute to address my mental health, and to be yes, I have problems with my mental health that I need to address, and these are pre-existing issues that I've had, and things that I needed to address, and I need professional help for, and I need, it took me a while to be I can do that. I can acknowledge that there's a problem and be I can get help for it. And oftentimes, when I would, hear maybe my girlfriend even brought it up, this can help you. I, immediately the original thoughts and feelings that I had was that this must be something that they think that I can't address myself and that I need professional help for. And I saw that as a weakness or a bad thing. And I think it's important for me to acknowledge, and at least also for me to say publicly that it's not a weakness. It's really important to address your mental health and things that are affecting you. As for me, I have, put to the side a lot of my mental health concerns, and oftentimes even self-care, whether it be because I, have a lack of care for myself. I put other things above that, stuff like that. Those are concerns that I have affected me and have limited my ability to address things that hold me back from being able to develop these healthy coping mechanisms to address these sort of scenarios. And I also I just want to say I owe it to my, not only myself, but also to my community, because I think it's important for me to have a good baseline as a person to be able to be the best version of myself, so that I can portray that for everyone else. Because I also want people to be able to look up to me. And that's also why like I've taken time back to reflect and think about everything that I've done, is that I don't think I've been living up to that. I want to live up to that more, and I want to address that more. And I think it's important to that people who are in these positions take accountability, they address things, they genuinely want to hear the concerns of people. I think those are really important characteristics and attributes, and something that like I always want to bring as a person, and I think is really important. So to like recharacterize everything and like address it so that I can catch everyone up, and then I'll talk a little bit more about like what's been going on with me, is that I think that I should have addressed things with the Unfuck America tour quicker and more effectively. I think that the way that I did it put too much trust in people that I didn't have enough knowledge about as people. I should do more research into people as well. And I think that because I was under the impression that they were taking private accountability and were going to likely address things publicly. I wanted to give people more time to be able to address things, and I think that that was the wrong way and the wrong approach. And I think that I should have pushed to like get her to address it publicly before, or I'm not going on. And I think that that would have been a better way to address everything. And I think that it's definitely more understanding to do that. I definitely there's a lot of work, at least I have to do myself. There's a lot of work other people have to do. But I think the point that I want to make is that we're all continuing to push and do work on ourselves and progress as people, and that doesn't exclude me. And that's me, like it's a very, very huge part of myself, is that like I want to continue progressing and getting better. So that's where I'm coming from, and things that I wanted to address before I go in and I end up talking to people and debating people, because I think that's a really important thing for me to address. For people who are asking about my mustache, I will tell the story actually behind that. So my mustache, I just like, I was kind of lazy and I just wasn't, touching my facial hair. And I was like, one day I was like, oh, should I just shave it? Asking my girlfriend, she's like, shave everything but the stash. Let's just see what it looks like. And I'm like, it's cool. Let me try it and let me see it. And she's like, oh, it's cool. It's kind of fun. Like, it's not necessarily she likes it more or anything, but it's like, it's just fun. It's like, whatever, cool. I think it'd be cool to like show my chat, when I get back. I feel like they'd be like, and Dean went on live, was like, Parker's a changed man or something like that.
About the Unfuck America tour, and a couple things that have been transpiring since even before the Unfuck America tour, 2 days before. And this relates to myself, this relates to Parker, and this relates to the organizer of the tour, Z. So first and foremost, I think it's worth kind of going over like why we're talking about this. So I say we start there. For those that don't know, because I'm going to go ahead and assume that there's a lot of people in this live that don't know, the organizer of the Unfuck America tour, her name is Z, and I want to say maybe 2 or 3 days before we inevitably went boots on the ground in Texas, Z had joined a live with a panel of black women and had been incredibly microaggressive against them. This was then recorded, and word got around, and in fact, I knew that she was on a panel and had gone to shit while it was happening, but it wasn't until the next day that I had learned exactly what she had done. And at that point, we were 2 days out from boots on the ground in Texas. And if we reflect on the last week, you all know that I ended up going to Texas, and I have not spoken about this on my live stream until now. So my first order of business is apologizing to the individuals that are watching this stream, that are a member of the BIPOC community, for not speaking out about this sooner. Over the course of the last, I want to say 5 to 6 to 7 days since this, there's been a lot of thoughts that have been going around in my head, insofar as how I want to navigate through this and what I want to achieve and what I want the future to look like. But I think one really big mistake I've made, one really bad thing I've done, something I need to hold myself accountable for, was not calling this out before we went boots on the ground in Texas. And at the time, and my internal justification was that, well, I have fans across the country that have already bought their plane tickets to go to Texas, and they're going to be there, and I want to make sure that I'm there for them. And in retrospect, I recognize that I did not handle the situation correctly, and that on its own was not valid. What I should have done in response to everybody's asking what's happened, so we're going to reiterate what happened, was that Z, the organizer of the pack, had been microaggressive to Black women on TikTok Live, and I was
microaggressions,
yeah, and essentially, like, I was complacent with it, and insofar as the impact of my actions, because I still went on the trip, right? And then once again, I'm just gonna pick up where I left off. My justification at the time was, well, a lot of fans have already bought their tickets, so I want to make sure that I could be there for them. And at that time, it was requested that Z doesn't go live or doesn't make posts with her face on any of the accounts, so she's not personally benefiting off of any of the attention that the tour gets. Z is once again the organizer of the pack that went on this live, but I now recognize that I could have leveraged my influence and could have basically said that either she holds herself accountable and we see genuine progress, or I'm not going to go. And the likely response would have from the pack would have been, damn, all right, she's either going to hold herself accountable or we're going to kick her off, and we'd still love you to come with. And I didn't do that. I didn't do that, and I apologize. I think it's really, really important for everybody to hold themselves to a certain degree of accountability when they do something that they shouldn't have, especially people in the public spotlight, like myself, like Parker, etc. Especially fucking white men, right? So I seriously, I want to apologize for that. Now, since those events have transpired, and now of course I'm back in Colorado, for the last couple days, I've been determining how we want to navigate through this and what the next move is. And here's what we've come to the conclusion of. Today, me, Parker, Santana, and a bunch of other people that are going to be joining the live here shortly, we were able to get 30 creators, every single creator that went on the tour, on a call. And we came to the conclusion that we will not be continuing this tour under the organization of Z. So yeah, in other words, yeah, I do think that it should be addressed. I do think it should be talked about, because if it's not addressed and if it's not talked about, then all of a sudden it'll happen again. People will think it's okay, right? And I don't think it's okay to ignore legitimate concerns and good faith critique, especially as it applies to Black women in America today, as Black women in America today are one of the most marginalized groups of people in this country.
Okay. Another question, because I'm looking in the comments. If Johnny is here with the utmost respect, could you please add him? Because I would love to know what he has to say about this.
Yeah, for sure. We'll go ahead and add Johnny, and that's fine by me if he does happen to be here, and he is here. I would like it to be known that, and I mean, in this circumstance, Johnny's speaking for himself.
Hello. Hi. First off, before I speak, I want to hear from you, and then I kind of want to explain what I knew at the time. But first, I want to hear from you, because I'm learning a lot more as I'm going along here. And I want to make sure that I'm not disrespecting anyway. And I mean that sincerely. So tell me what unfolded, and then I'll try to fill in any gaps with what I knew. Please take the floor.
Well, first of all, frankly, as far as disrespect, it's a little bit too late for that. But anyway, do you recall about a week ago when I and Ray came up on Mermaids Live? We introduced ourselves, we complimented Mermaid, and then I tried to tell you about what happened on that live, where, by the way, if you don't know, her full name, the racist in question, is Z Cohen Sanchez. If anyone was wondering, that's her name. Again, Z Cohen Sanchez. She has an account on here with like 60K. Do with that information what you will. We came up and we tried to tell you that she was racist. And as we tried to tell you that, you cut me off in the middle of my sentence, ironically with the phrase, "I don't mean to cut you off." And you said, "We're not trying to keep things negative right now. We're trying to focus on the people who will be affected by Medicaid and food assistance." As if we're not both Medicaid recipients and food assistance recipients, and as if that somehow trumps the fact that racism actively happened. So that was pretty fucked up, actually. What's that about?
So I want to point out that you know that I tend to attempt to stay out of situations regarding streamers or quote unquote drama, which that's not what this is.
Not at all.
Right. At that time, I didn't know that. I didn't know about the situation. And so when I saw you folks come up, knowing that we were in the midst of a conversation in regards to food assistance and knowing that the situation probably was going to be about other streamers, I immediately had the response of, well, let's keep it on this. I shouldn't have done that, because if I didn't do that, you would have told me about the racism right from the get-go, which would have stopped me from bringing Mermaid further into the situation, because my goal was never to create an unsafe environment for her. I wanted her to have a really good time, which is why I really fought to get her there. So I want to make that evident. One, I should have let you speak on it. I didn't, because I wanted to focus on Medicaid and food assistance. That was wrong of me. And then two, I want to say I sincerely apologize about that. And I mean that genuinely, because as I started to kind of get an understanding of what was going on, I should have called you and I should have said, hey, let's talk about this. In part, I decided not to, and I decided just to cut myself out of the equation altogether, because I saw that you had a live stream with a couple other streamers, and I know that you folks were really unhappy with me, and I felt as though if I stepped up and showed my face, that would only inflame more division between folks during the midst of this event in Texas, and I didn't want to make the situation about myself in any way, shape, or form. So I kind of just cut myself out of it altogether, which again was definitely not the right way to go about it, because that created more of an issue and a lack of transparency, which is my fault.
One says, Sam, how the hell did you get a flag? Dude, TikTok
It's
sucks.
okay to me. I don't know.
Are you okay with remaining up here on this account, or do you want to switch accounts? If so,
My other account's banned too. They don't like black people, which seems to be an ongoing theme. But anyway, what's it called? Do you want me to drop for now, or because
I want you to stay up here for as long as you want, and I mean even after you're done talking to Danny, Johnny.
Oh.
As soon as you're done talking to
New name
Johnny,
unlocked.
As soon as you're done talking, sorry, I'm
You're
as
good.
Soon as soon as you're done talking to Johnny, I'd like to maybe have a little bit of a further conversation with you. But go ahead, you guys.
Okay. Ray's texting me right now. Ray told me she sent you the live in question.
Mm-hmm. I got more information afterwards, and as I learned this information, I should have connected with you two. I decided not to. And I also spoke to Ray and I explained that you and Ray and anybody else who felt a certain way about the situation has the right to express their feelings and their thoughts and their concerns, and that it's my job to listen. And I spoke about that. My goal overall is to attempt to do some good here. That's my mission. My belief is that we're put on this planet to uplift one another and others, which is why I attempt to cut myself out of these situations. But I think, again, that doesn't always serve me well. And this is a prime example of how it didn't. I should have connected with you. I should have let you speak on the matter. And I shouldn't have been so focused on, well, let's talk about these issues. Let's talk about Medicaid. Let's talk about Medicare. When this was critically important, and it would have helped me, and especially Mermaid, in the long run. Because again, if I knew this was happening at that time beforehand, and I really understood the entire extent of what was happening, I probably would have just said, Mermaid, Johnny, we're not going to do this. Let's take a step back. But I didn't do that. I was also well aware that a lot of us were going with the intent on meeting young voters. And so a lot of folks weren't connecting behind the scenes on this information, just in part because we were so focused on, well, here's what we're going to create there. Here's what videos we're going to make here. Who's here? This is what we're going to talk to and who we're going to talk with. And we had conversations about who we're going to debate and what kind of issues we want to talk about. My issue I wanted to talk about was food assistance. So we spent more time on that. And I think that, again, this is an example of
is saying slurs and stereotyping, but do you acknowledge that when a person of color says the word racism and they're immediately cut off, that's racist?
Absolutely.
Okay.
But I also want to make clear here, my intent was never to cut you off in the manner to stop you from speaking on this issue. It was that I didn't know what the issue was. And so I wanted to talk about the issue that was already being discussed at hand. I shouldn't have done that. I should have given you the opportunity to speak more on the subject. And I am sincerely sorry for that. And I hope you know I mean that. This is a good learning opportunity for me in the sense that, one, instead of trying to cut myself out of an equation, I shouldn't do that again. And two, I need to ensure that to properly offer transparency, because overall this situation, like across the board with the tour, lacked it. I need to be doing my part. That part, especially in that moment, was to let you speak. I didn't do that.
Okay. All right. Well, that aside, whether or not I accept that apology, I don't know. I doubt that we're ever going to speak again. So.
Sure. Well, I want to add here. I think it's also critically important that communicating on this going forward is at the forefront of the actions we're taking, because a lot of this could have been avoided through communication. When that situation unfolded, the first messages I had received were from Ray. And Ray had explained that you folks were expressing your beliefs and your emotions over the situation. But I really wish we had a one-on-one discussion. I think it's important to just express that we could really communicate in a transparent way to offer more, I suppose, well, I guess to ensure that there's not an argument or a fight. Again, because my mission here is to do good. I just don't want to be creating stress for anybody else. I think there were a lot of live streams that have been held about other people. I know, for example, you were on a live stream with Julie and a live stream with, or Tashika and a live stream with Ray. And I've heard a lot of the things that have been said about me and a lot of accusations said about me and a lot of rhetoric said about me. And I'm trying to take a step back, not to step into that in order to, one, keep myself away from any issues, because again, I'm just trying to do some good here. And two, I think that all of that really could just be avoided if we continue conversing through proper dialogues and conversations and one-on-one in a transparent manner. And I mean that sincerely.
Okay. I think a one-on-one conversation would have been great. I completely agree. But Julie said that she texted you twice. And Ray said that she texted you, and then the last person to speak in that text conversation is her.
Mm-hmm. Ray and I had a conversation back and forth in regards to that situation. As far as Julie, information that did I just freeze? Never mind. There was information that I had received, and again, I tried to take a step back. And again, I mean this so sincerely and genuinely. I heard information. To everybody tuning in, please know I mean this sincerely. I heard rhetoric that was spoken by Julie that I don't support. And so I chose to, again, take a step back from any drama.
So right now in my drafts, I have a post for my blog about the Unfuck America tour. And if you go on my page, I kind of have the basis of it on here right now. I did like a bunch of notes when I was traveling that I posted on here. But I wanted to kind of share some more thoughts that I have, because I just saw right now a Republican video in my feed. I don't get a lot of those, but it was a bunch of Republicans cheering on the fact that the Unfuck America tour crumbled the way that it did. And also commenting about how the left is so obsessed with race that it will always essentially destroy the organizing that they have. And I wanted to just kind of like openly share some thoughts that maybe I'll hone later in the post that I ultimately make for my website. What makes a lot of this conversation fascinating to me is the way that at every step of the conversation, people have disengaged from what I personally see as real politics. What I mean by real politics is you actually practice your politics. You don't just talk about them. You don't just have the right script, right? It's actually a set of actions. It's actually a set of things that you do that you practice actively, right? That's the way I personally view politics, that you don't get to just be known as a person who does politics because of what you say. It's more about what you do and your attitude, right? And what a lot of Black folks see in a lot of the white talking heads that are trying to lead these conversations is that these people don't quite practice the politics that they state. That's what's really clear, right? That's what's very obvious in what we see of the organizing that they do. Now, in my post, I kind of write about this because I think there's a complex aspect of this that a lot of people don't really want to acknowledge or really talk about that I think is at the center of this issue. So Black women specifically looked at the Unfuck America tour, saw that 2 white men were being paid to follow Charlie Kirk around the country, and they said, hey, why aren't we part of this? And that's actually a really decent thing to question when you're understanding the Unfuck America tour as a group of people who care about unfucking America traveling around to contradict Charlie Kirk and share a diversity of ideas with college students. Because here's the thing, and I feel this way as a person who does public speaking at colleges and universities. The reality is the groups that would typically invite people like me out to speak have been dismantled by the Trump administration, right? The reality is that while that has happened, Turning Point USA has only become stronger in college campuses, right? And that is the result of years and years and years and years and years of Republicans working to reach young people. So now there's a very real issue of college campuses are removing courses about diversity. And at the same time, there's now less representation of diverse perspectives on college campuses. Trump's administration is essentially trying to make it so that the only ideas that thrive on college campuses are essentially the ideas of white conservative men that ultimately feed into the needs of billionaires, right? And if you've paid attention to any of the culture war conversations and you actually do know what is going on, and I'm saying this as someone who's been having these conversations since Bush, none of what's happening right now is shocking. And there was always a reason why you had people like me who were constantly advocating for our representation in these conversations. Because even though there's a segment of the population who now feels like it is so commonplace for us to talk about stuff like Black Lives Matter, we know that historically the suppression of ideas coupled with the limitation of information and the way that people have been miseducated and education has been made accessible to them, we know that the result of that has been a history of dehumanization, racism, and oppression. And that one of the only things that has really sort of pulled us to the point we are now, where we're having these conversations, is social media and the democratization of information. Information that a lot of times is people who went to college coming to the internet to share some of what they learned in college. And some of what they learned in college is their ability to communicate, their way of communicating. I went to school for character animation, right? Even though I have an animation degree, it taught me how to tell stories, how to have conversations, and I use the fuck out of my degree. But keep in mind right now, the Trump administration is trying to make it so that no one has access to this education, and that if they do, they're not given conversations that would ultimately make, you know, what billionaires are doing less feasible. That's just what it's about. That's why Donald Trump is so eager and willing to embrace white nationalist interests that may not exactly be 100% aligned with his, but might as well be because of, you know, his history as, you know, a racist and as, you know, a billionaire, right? And someone who was raised with money in a lot of situations where there was a bit of a racial caste, right? Trump used to make it so that the black people who worked at his, you know, his establishments never really worked front of house, right? Like, these are people who were raised, whether consciously or subconsciously, with a view of white supremacy and a view of capitalism that they don't really want to do away with. A view that is challenged by college-educated, especially people of color who utilize social media to have these conversations, right? So, like, there is a reason to talk about this. There is a reason for black women to be on college campuses. But what makes this a bit complicated is the reality of where we are currently as a country right now is, and part of why people don't see this is because we've spent so much time not actually doing the politics, right? Just saying the script, right? The reality is we live in a much more deeply racist country that people have really allowed themselves to reckon with and recognize. The vast majority of the ills that people have in this country relate in some way to the way that white Americans wanted to keep free black people in a position of perpetual, what's the word? Not supremacy. They want to maintain a perpetual position of supremacy over black people, right? So they don't want free black people to have upward mobility, which means they have to create hurdles in healthcare, hurdles in the education system, and they have to create, you know, these loopholes where, you know, now they're putting people into jail and allowing them to be used as slaves because, well, we legally can't do slavery anymore because that would contradict our publicly stated politic, but we want to create these loopholes, right? So there's a lot of stuff in this country that is foundationally racist, but there's been a lot of work being, you know, that was geared towards making you feel as if it wasn't. And if you've been paying attention to these conversations, every single time someone like me has come and drawn attention to things like redlining, the church, the school, that's the Freudian slip, the school to church, to prison pipeline and things, it's been dismissed as us making everything about race, right? There's never really a right time to talk about this stuff. And the reality is that because our country is as foundationally racist as it is, MAGA is overwhelmingly a white supremacist movement, yes, even for the people of color involved. And unfortunately, when it comes to de-radicalizing those people, they're not going to listen to black women. They're not going to listen to black women. They're not interested in listening to black women. And these organizers know that. These organizers themselves don't want to listen to black women. And racism is so ingrained that you have white people who genuinely grant themselves the premise of not being racist because of their left-leaning politics, who turn to black women who have been politically organizing forever and say like, oh, well, if you ever did this, you would understand, right? The supremacy is ingrained, and that is part of the issue here. So continuing my thoughts about the Unfuck America tour. So in the last video I made, I talked about basically how in all reality, if the goal is to de-radicalize MAGA, right? Something that I think needs to happen probably. They're not going to listen to black women, even if it's true that black women right now are not being included in these conversations. And that's a real issue because students no longer have access to a diverse array of opinions because of what the Trump administration is doing, right? But like, since I had those thoughts, a few more things have come out, and it seems a bit like Z has an issue with paying people, with respecting the work of people of color, especially. And this is a little bit worse than we initially thought. It's also come out that apparently some of these creators were told that they were going to get a percentage of the money that was raised, and that was one of the main reasons why they were doing this. And you know, as a content creator and a public speaker, I am not against anybody getting money. Like, people should be paid for their time. I do think that part of the conversation people were trying to have is that some of the issue here is that when we do have these opportunities, they frequently do go to white folks, right? And that is kind of a meta conversation in and of itself, that, you know, the only two people who were 100% going to get paid to do this presentation were these two white boys, right? But, you know, the thing about it is, even if it's true that I think those two white boys are really, really good at what they do, they reach the right people, and they're the most likely to be listened to, it's also still true that Z was being anti-Black, right? And a lot of people are struggling to see the anti-Blackness, and I want people to get that that's kind of like the point, right? Like, people don't really get that part of the way this shit works is you do it and then you don't even notice that you're doing it, right? You don't even notice that you're doing it. There's a really good reason why Black women's voices especially should be part of these conversations. It's not important, right? And the thing that a lot of people don't really seem to get is the way that this is treated always is as if there is never a right time to talk about anti-Blackness, ever. There's never a right time. And what that means is that you're gonna do some anti-Black shit. If you're confused about anti-Black shit, I'll give you one example real quickly. They believed that because there were two Black people who were part of the tour who had no issues with what was happening, that suddenly the criticism they were receiving from Black people meant that there was no problem, right? That is a form of tokenizing. It's a form of racism, right? It's a form of racism that you might not see as negative, but it's a form of racism nonetheless. Turning to Black people and saying, okay, well, these Black people agree with me, though, is this idea that one Black person's idea, one Black person's perspective, you know, can counteract another Black person's, right? It's an inherent dehumanization because both of these people should be able to have their opinions and have them exist independent of each other. We grant that humanity to white people. We don't quite grant it to people of color. We accept that even in this conversation, that there are people like Dean and Parker who exist who are white men who disagree with a lot of the topics that people on the MAGA end who are also white men bring to the table. So we already entertain this premise that two people can be white and feel differently about something. But when you feel as if Black people have one perspective, one position, that's a type of dehumanization that you're reserving for Black people specifically. I think for a lot of white folks who kind of find themselves in positions where, you know, they're wondering if they're being anti-Black and they're turning to their friends, and that's important, and asking whether or not, you know, they're being anti-Black. I think people really do need to recognize that part of white supremacy is that for a Black person, you often feel if you are trying to gain security and safety, that you can really mostly only do that through white people, right? And so there are some Black people who feel like if they side with white folks, they will always be safer. And in the context of this, let's just be honest about it, right? Some people are trying to secure a gig. Some people are trying to secure what they think may eventually turn into a paid opportunity, right? So there are incentives for the Black people that you're working with to not show solidarity with Black folks. And if you are actually trying to figure out whether or not something, you know, is racist, if you really are in that position, it's really worth considering that maybe the friends you have might not be the people you should listen to, right? Maybe the friends you have feel more of a reason to protect your ego than you recognize. Part 3 of me sharing my thoughts about the Unfuck America tour, and this I think is actually the real big point that I wanted to make. I think that it is really important for especially white people to be working hard to reach other white people who are MAGA. And so in terms of the premise of the Unfuck America tour, I support it. I support the idea of you going and trying to face this audience of usually white folks who are really invested in what Charlie Kirk has to say. I think that's what you should be doing. But here's the thing, you guys. Some of this comes out of the Jubilee Media, school of thought, rather. I think that a lot of people overestimate the power of these debates. And I'm saying this as someone who has been online since the Bush era, having multiple conversations and debates around multiple topics that we've seen take shape right now. There actually was a time where it would be pretty hard for you to find people openly debating white nationalist positions, because there was kind of this sense that if we give a platform to those things, it will reach other people who will then maybe buy into these ideas, and justifying these conversations with a debate is dangerous. Did people still do it? Sure, but it wasn't nearly as widespread as it currently is. And while it's true that if you are in the audience of some of these debates, you may hear someone from the other side eventually recognize that you were wrong and change your position, it's also pretty true that the ultimate result of those conversations about how we need to have these debates, how we need to reach across the table, was that more of these people found these ideas, digested these ideas, started to identify with them, and shifted to the right because of these conversations. And if you have watched some of these Jubilee Media videos, or even any of the various different forms of debate that we've had over the years, I'm someone who used to watch a lot of atheist debates, right? So I would watch, for example, Matt Dillahunty, who is very well informed about the Bible, debate with people who are Christian, many of whom barely read the Bible. And he would very regularly win the argument. And I'm not saying that because I'm, someone who, just because I'm an atheist, right? Like, there would be times where he would just be right about something. He would be right, like flat out. It could be something simple. He could read a Bible verse and say that it exists in the Bible, and they would say, no, it doesn't, right? And what I saw pretty consistently over and over and over and over and over again is that you could bring the truth to some of these people. But if they're in a cult, they are in a cult. And what I think a lot of people are not prepared for, fully wrapping their mind around, is that some of these people in MAGA are in a cult. And people like Charlie Kirk know this. People like Charlie Kirk are very aware of what to say, how to say it, and they're basically just cashing in on what they know to be hatred that is embedded in our country, right? A lot of these billionaires do too, right? Like, they know that our populace is hateful and racist and looking for a scapegoat, and they are taking advantage of it, and they've been able to use this to convince people to vote against their own rights. That's what the Southern strategy was all about, because there used to be people in the South who were very working class oriented, who understood that people like Donald Trump were their enemies, right? But then we had a lot of this shit astroturfed by billionaires who were eager to convince the poor people who worked for them that they don't need unions, they don't need protections, they don't need, labor rights. And now what we are seeing is a lot of those people do what they've always wanted to do, right? They've never really seen the worker as worthy of humanity. And now they're chomping at the bit to replace these people with AI, right? For people paying attention, it's not hard to see how much people like Elon Musk and Donald Trump hate us, see us as peasants. But some people have been propagandized to the point where they will never see it, no matter how many times they lay it out. And you can kind of see this right now, right? You've got people who are losing their businesses, who have been experts in their industry, right? I've seen this in the context of trucking, right? People who've been truckers for a really, really long time who voted for Donald Trump, right? And in their acknowledgement of how Donald Trump's stupidity has completely ruined their life, completely destroyed their business, they are still groveling for the affection of Donald Trump. I think the biggest use of the Unfuck America tour would be coming onto college campuses and getting the people who are there to learn a diverse perspective that isn't going to be provided to them, right? Like, we are currently existing during a time where LGBT education, feminist education, any education around race, any education about all the shit that I embody, right, is being removed from the schools. So it actually is, there's a reason why people want Black women on those college campuses having those conversations, even if those people won't listen to Black women, right? There's a reason all this shit's happening, though. And that's kind of what I think people need to really be honest about. If you think following Charlie Kirk around the country is really about fighting in any way that we're going to see against this stuff, I think you have fallen prey to the Jubilee media, thing, right? It's easy to kind of believe that this stuff is bigger than what it actually is, and to lose sight of the reality of what's happening in this country. A lot of people are underestimating how deeply seated racism is in this country, how deeply seated a lot of bigotry is in this country. And even the people who are listening to this right now and denying it don't get that they only have that reaction because there's people who have been spending a lot of money trying to convince you that when you hear people like me say these things, that we're full of shit, right? And I want for people to really start understanding that this is deeper than you actually think. But during a time when I think we really do need to see these things, what are people saying? It's not that deep. It's not that deep. And when people tried to call out anti-Blackness within this thing, right? What did they even say? That it's not that deep. And that's where we are in the context of a tour that is supposed to unfuck America. I want for people to get that is actually a really accurate representation of where we are. We are not in a position where even some of the people who are fighting against Trump are actually really in any meaningful way willing to engage in the things that we really do need to engage with to actually get where we need to be. These people are anti-Black because anti-Blackness is a base for them. Because for a lot of people like Z, like Dean, like some of the other people that are involved, right? Whiteness is a thing that they can fall back on that will always make them feel powerful, right? And so unpacking that is a lot harder than people estimate. And that's the problem. Trump won because people underestimated just how conservative this country is and just how few people are moved by wanting to protect the vulnerable people in this country who are not white. That's the reality. And it's a reality that I've been trying to get across to people as someone who's from a conservative community who was around these people, right? Like, people don't get how deep-seated this is, and we're not going to move forward until we do. People on both the right and the left need to see this. All right, I've made a couple of really sporadic videos over the past couple of days about the Unfuck America tour, and I'm really just kind of sharing my thoughts about this because I am a person who does public speaking on college campuses, and I really think that there were a lot of things about all of this that people didn't really calculate correctly. And yeah, so I just wanted to share, you know, some of my perspective as someone who like knows about that sort of thing, because clearly a lot of people who thought that they were going to be able to like put together a tour in you know, a really short period of time, I don't think they really had a lot of that experience. So I've been trying to talk about that from my perspective. But I just saw a video, and it was from someone who I've seen a lot of content from, who I typically appreciate. And she was talking about how we need to let go of cancel culture, and was specifically referring to Z and everything that happened. And the argument, of course, being that these people are doing so much to fight against fascism. And for that reason, you know, it's the same thing that we've always heard, right? If you experience any sort of anti-Blackness, any sort of, you know, ism, right? Just don't talk about it. Don't talk about it. Don't draw attention to it. Don't call it out. Allow it to exist so that these people can reach a wide range of people and do the productive work. And I just really want to bottom line this for you guys. One of the most aggravating aspects of this conversation is the belief that this is going to end fascism. That following Charlie Kirk around college campuses is going to end fascism. And you know, the reason why I'm talking about that is because if we are to believe that what someone is doing is so good, is so useful, so productive, and so helpful, right? We should treat it as if we are willing to accept some of the bad shit that comes from it, because of the good that comes from it, right? We were having a similar conversation about Kamala Harris, right? We were saying, well, you know, she may have done some things that we don't agree with, but she isn't aligned with all of the things that Donald Trump is aligned with, right? That was a choice of like the presidency. At this point, we can't deny that the presidency does impact our daily lives, right? It is something that will functionally impact change, right? There are people across the country right now who are out of jobs because Donald Trump decided that they didn't need to have jobs, right? Objectively, the presidency will change and impact people's lives. A bunch of people who were in a Jubilee video, who have a large following on the internet, following Charlie Kirk, who is a very well-funded person who now is in the position where he has free range on college campuses without a challenge or an alternative perspective, right? That's not really going to do what I think you guys think it's going to do. Really what you guys are doing, and let's just bottom line this here and be honest about it, is you are piggybacking off of his fame. And the reason why I'm drawing attention to that and saying that is because what I think a lot of you guys don't get is that some of us have these conversations because we really care about what we're talking about. And I'm saying that because what's frustrating, and I know that we talk about this a lot, what's frustrating about the way that these conversations go is that so many of you guys don't get that what we are reacting to is you are acting in a way that, in our opinion, conflicts with what you are claiming to believe, right? And so many people treat politics as the script that we're supposed to just repeat, right? That we're just supposed to read off of, right? And then when we interact with you and it seems like what you're doing doesn't really match the script, right? That obviously ends up confusing us. And so now we have to really think, is it really worth considering this in the way that we once did? is it really worth thinking these are the people who are going to save us from fascism when these are people who are engaging in some of the things that are central to it? I'll just break this down for a lot of the white kids who don't really seem to get this, right? You get that one of the main reasons why so many people look at Gaza and roll their eyes and say, well, you know, it is what it is because of centuries of dehumanization of Palestinians, right? You get that, right? You get that the reason why so many people who grew up in America can look at a keffiyeh and, you know, feel anger is because they've been propagandized to believe that people who are Palestinian are less than human and don't fucking deserve any consideration at all as humans, right? They're viewed as parasites, and a lot of Israelis are raised to see them that way in a very similar way. And this is incredibly fucking important to understand, because Israel and its policies and a lot of the shit connected to Israel, even going back as far as Hitler, it's connected to America's relationship with race, right? So what you guys don't, I guess, get is that when you're having this conversation where you're getting pat on the back for, being somebody who is saving fascism, but you're doing the things that feed into the very thing you're saying you're fighting against, it's not purity politics to call that out. It isn't. But the reality, and this is the thing that I've been trying to talk about in this context, the reality is, for the audience that the Unfuck America tour was trying to reach, and for the people who are center in that movement, yes, even the black people, anti-blackness is not that important to them. That's the reality of it. The reality of it is they didn't want for this to be called out publicly, not because they were doing productive work to fight against fascism that needed to be done, that needed to be protected, but because it would ultimately fuck up the impression the audience who is on the left would have of them when it comes to their relationship with black folks, right? Like, it's a sales point, right? It has nothing to do with actually actively wanting to have these conversations in a real way. It has to do with selling themselves as these people who can do this work. And it's a little frustrating to me because, here's the thing. On paper, there's a really, really good reason for people to come on college campuses, especially from the community, and challenge the ideas on these campuses. It's really important for these students to be able to understand that Charlie Kirk's worldview is astroturfed by billionaires and does not represent the entire story. It's really important for people to have opposing views, so don't get it fucked up. I agree with the premise of it, right? But what a lot of people are saying in this conversation is that the work they're doing is so productive, so useful, so good that, well, maybe they can have a little bit of anti-blackness as a treat. And I get that a lot of you guys don't understand what the anti-blackness is. I think when we first started having this conversation, that was a little bit harder to understand. If you watch Peyton's video, right, you will see that these creators who are involved in the Unfuck America tour were a lot more racist than we initially thought. You had people who were saying that no one was being, that no one was harassing these black women, who then went onto, their other accounts to harass black women for entertainment. And the thing that frustrates me about this is the vast majority of the people that are part of this tour are privileged people who were racist not that long ago. Right? These are people who do, in so many ways, still agree with a lot of the Republicans they're talking to, right? One of the things I'm writing about in my post that I'm working on for my website is that, I actually do think that young white men are the most efficient at de-radicalizing other young white men. But we have to accept that if the focus is de-radicalization and anti-blackness exists within this organization, well, we have to accept that for where we are we are far more deeply racist than I think we're ready to recognize. Because in all reality, these people getting called out for being racist, it endears them to the right. It does not make them seem like bad people. And that there's never a right time to talk about this is part of how we got here. And see, this is like the biggest frustration that I have, because that's actually what I interpret from most of these people who are engaged in like this debate-centric form of doing political work. And it's actually really aggravating, because it makes every single person who comes online to talk about politics, especially if you do post to platforms where stuff is monetized, right? It kind of makes every person who does this, it puts them in a position where they potentially can be accused of grifting in the way that they are, right? Like, one of the interesting things about this particular instance, right? Andra, right? She made a video about it that was completely full of shit, right? Completely full of shit. You look at the private messages and you know that she was actively engaging in aspects of this discourse as a source of entertainment. What I think a lot of people do not understand, and it's kind of frustrating to me because I've been talking about this for so long, and because from where I'm sitting, and this is important, I think, and this is why I think there's such a miscommunication, from where I'm sitting, it's really fucking obvious that entertainment as a central thing that is placed at the center of all these conversations is how we got here, right? Because when you are a person who, you know, I'm going to withdraw what I was about to say. I'm actually just going to be more specific, because ironically, someone is involved who I actually always think is such a great fucking example of this. Destiny, right? I don't think it's a coincidence that Z ran to Destiny. Now, I'll start what I'm going to say in this video by saying that, you know, I probably don't know as much as I could know about Destiny, but the little bit that I do know of Destiny over the years that I've been on the internet, when he's on the internet, is that Destiny is really good at making certain arguments without really necessarily believing in what he's saying. So there would be times where I would watch Destiny make excellent arguments against anti-racism, entertaining arguments against anti-racism. But then I would also go see him do some racist shit. Turns out he apparently had sex with Lauren Southern. I don't know if that's true or not, but like, do you understand that for me personally, as a black person, I could not and would not put myself in a situation where I'm being intimate with a white supremacist, right? And to me, it says something that your dick gets hard for one. This is also something that I'm going to apply to the other quote, quote side. I mean, I don't necessarily look at things in that way, but like, there are leftists on here who recently came on here and, you know, yelled at so many people rightfully about what's happening in Palestine, right? Then he went and fucked a Zionist. Do you understand that, like, I think what a lot of people miss is that for people who are actually affected by these things, there's ways that these people move that make it kind of clear that they don't really care about this shit. Not really. You know, these people don't really give a fuck about these things. If you read some of the messages that were shared, that is super apparent, right? These people do not care. They're there to make money. I think some of these people do care about fighting against MAGA. I think some of these people do have strong, principled disagreements with the right. I am not really making the argument that these people don't believe some of what they're saying, but too many of the entertainment-centric people who have these conversations, they're predominantly interested in having these conversations from a position of entertainment and establishing themselves as talking heads that will be paid to present. Now, this is a problem, right? Because, you know, what was part of the meta conversation around the Unfuck America tour, that there were no Black women specifically who were on the tour being paid to present in the same way as Dean and Parker, right? That was one of the main things people were talking about. Now, of course, there's reasons why you would send a group of, you know, young white men to de-radicalize other young white men, right? Okay, but really, I think the frustration that some people have relates to the way that these people are able to be seen as authorities for conversations that they've really just read. And then their authority has a way of consistently smashing out, silencing, and invalidating the people who live through these things, the people who actually do live through this shit. And whenever those people try to really collaborate, right, and say, hey, I'm willing to lend my time, my energy, my voice to make this a bit more of a diverse conversation, it's met with resistance, because there's always this like resistance from these people towards, frankly, I don't know if this is the best way to say it, but like original sources, right? Like they have this resistance to actually including people who are from these groups in their conversations unless they're completely submissive to them, right? Look at the language that they used in some of those messages, right? They said, our Black people, right? Our Black people, the people that are on, you know, the Unfuck America, the few that were on the Unfuck America tour, our Black people agree with us, right? The problem is, for a lot of people, the only purpose Black people have within their groupings, within their little organization, is to be used as a person to point at and say, hey, this person agrees with me, right? And really, the best sort of political work comes, in my opinion, from disagreement, not necessarily disagreement like, you know, Charlie Kirk versus, you know, the people on the Unfuck America tour, right? More so that we all have different ways of solving the same problem. And what was missed in this conversation is that what these people were frankly saying is that white boys are the best people to solve this issue. Some other people said, hey, we should probably also have some Black people in this shit, right? And it's true that there are plenty of white people who are MAGA who need and will probably only listen to, you know, a white person to explain these things, right? But there's also Black people over there. There's also people who are of other marginalizations over there for whom would probably be more open to hearing from someone of their group as well. But see, there's always this assumption that in all situations, the decisions that white people make are superior. And that's the piece that a lot of these people who consistently make these mistakes don't really seem to be noticing. There's this attitude that a lot of white folks have where they see everything that they want to do, regardless of whether or not it's informed by experience beyond their theory, they look at it as always the right solution, always the right path. And people who go against them, who criticize them in any way, are simply trying to derail the best path. I watched a video of a white liberal so-called leftist on here talk about how people who are coming for the Unfuck America tour are part of cancel culture and, you know, all this other shit. And it's like, do you guys understand that most of America is not watching Charlie Kirk, that most of America does not exist on college campuses, and that especially those people right now are probably in the most pain and at the most risk? What you're doing, it's nice, it's entertaining, it allows for a diversity of conversation on college campuses during a time when certain perspectives are being silenced. All of that is amazing, but it is not unfucking America. It is not saving the world. It is not good enough to be indifferent and dismissive towards anti-blackness. And that is what people are saying. And they don't recognize that by saying that, really what they're doing is making it clear that they don't care about this shit. It's all entertainment for them.